Chapter 119. At the same time, somewhere in an unknown space, a splendid and magnificent palace stood among the clouds. The magnificent and simple golden bricks and jade tiles were emitting a dazzling divine light. Dense spiritual chi gushed out from it, and the sound of the great Tao resounded for thousands of miles. At this moment, a furious roar filled with killing intent came from the palace. Who is it? Who humiliated me? Boom! The murderous aura surged like an ocean and suppressed the sky. Around the palace, countless beautiful creatures instantly prostrated themselves on the ground and shivered. They couldn't think of anyone in this world who dared to provoke the person in front of them. Don't let me find you. Otherwise, I will make sure you can't reincarnate and become a slave forever. On the other side, Nian Xingyin left the Ling people's sacred realm and turned to look at the vast sea of vital energy that connected the heavens and the earth. The coldness between her brows had already returned to normal. Ling Xiao, you better not leave the Ling people. Otherwise, however, this goddess of the Tao Palace felt a little puzzled. Why didn't she feel tired after the continuous battles yesterday? Even her cultivation level showed signs of loosening. Didn't her master say that love in the world was poison that would kill anyone who touched it? Why did the feeling last night feel so wonderful? Also, what was that cold and evil aura in the depths of Ling Xiao's soul that made one feel despair? She couldn't see it clearly and couldn't guess it. Instead, it was a little attractive, but Ling Xiao had to die, and she had to kill him with her own hands. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to cultivate her Tao to become an immortal. Boom! At this moment, in the depths of the Sunset Mountain Range, a spiritual light suddenly shot up into the sky. A heart-palpitating hot aura spread in all directions and almost enveloped the entire peak of the mountain. This is the birth of a divine item. Nian Xingyun's pretty face was stunned. She didn't hesitate at all and directly flashed towards the divine light. Around the Sunset Mountain, countless figures also flew out angrily from the ancient lands of countless sections. Obviously, they were all rushing towards the divine item that had appeared. Although the Sunset God Mountain was the location of the Ling people's sacred realm, and even if a divine item appeared, it would most likely fall into the hands of that clan. Naturally, the powerhouses of the various sects did not dare to snatch the treasures from them. However, they believed that Ling people would not say anything if they sent their disciples to gain experience. Senior Sister Fu, are we really going to master Ling Xiao's clan land this time? Amidst the green mountains and clear waters, several geniuses of the Universal Demon sect dressed in black followed behind Fu Yunyao, their faces filled with anticipation. That's right. There's a spiritual light shooting into the sky from the Sunset Divine Mountain. It must be the appearance of a great treasure. Now, many forces in the eastern border are rushing towards the Sunset City. When the time comes, you must be careful and not cause trouble. Fu Yunyao was dressed in a green robe. There was a faint smile on her beautiful face. It was said that the young master had defeated a Shengzhou Heaven Pride with the Thunder Dao Law yesterday. Lightning Dao Law. It seemed like the young master had two types of Dao laws. With such talent, sooner or later, he would step onto the pinnacle of heaven and earth. And at this time, Fu Yunyao had secretly made up her mind. No matter what, she must hold on tightly to the young master's thigh. Sunset Ancient City. Lin Shi stood in an inn in the city. He raised his head to look at the spiritual light in the sky, his eyes cold. Damn it! One more day, and he would be able to secretly pluck the Tao fruit, snatch the spiritual fire, and leave this dangerous place. But the undying heart flame had appeared on its own and caused such a phenomenon. This way, Lin Shi's plan was completely disrupted. Shi'er, don't be impatient. The appearance of the spiritual fire might not be a bad thing. Elder Ling's voice came from the ring. Might not be a bad thing. A gloomy look flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. Even a fool could guess that a precious treasure had appeared in the Sunset God Mountain. It wouldn't be long before the geniuses of the surrounding sects would gather in the Sunset Ancient City. That's right. The appearance of the spiritual fire will definitely attract countless eyes. This way, the Tao Law spirit fruit will appear inconspicuous. When we snatch the fruit, even if the God Overlord Fire Wolf wants to take revenge, it won't know who to retaliate against. Elder Ling smiled faintly. It was obviously unrealistic to secretly snatch the Tao Law spirit fruit in front of a God Overlord Fire Wolf. After all, no one would normally set foot in his territory. But now that the geniuses of the various sects had gathered here, they would definitely enter the mountain to search for the treasure. Only by taking advantage of the chaos would one be able to catch the fish. As for the undying heart flame, it wasn't that Elder Ling was conceited, but in the entire Shenzhou continent, only he and Lin Shi knew how to subdue it. That's true, Lin Shi nodded, instantly understanding Elder Ling's meaning. We can only wait patiently for one more day. On the firmament cloud peak, Ling Xiao looked at the golden paper in his hand with a smile on his face. Spiritual light piercing the heavens, a great treasure appearing? This Lin, she was worthy of being the son of heaven's mandate. Wherever he went, there was good fortune to be had. Furthermore, from the aura, it was most likely the spiritual fire of heaven and earth. Damn, they really didn't let him rest for even a moment. Ling Xiao had exhausted hundreds of millions of divine origin in the battle last night. He originally wanted to rest in the clan before going out to play with the Children of Destiny. He didn't expect that in just one day, an opportunity would come knocking on his door. Young Master, Nian Qingyun is heading to Setting Sun City. Nine Nether's voice suddenly sounded from the voice transmission talisman. Ling Xiao stretched his back and casually waved his hand. Floey instantly flew into his pants. Damn, there's a dragon in my crotch too? He took a step forward and flicked his hair. Ling Xiao smiled casually and walked toward the distant mountain. He hadn't thought of a good solution for the spirit seal yet. Thus, it was better not to provoke that little ancestor. Moreover, if she really wanted to harm him, she wouldn't have waited until now. As for Eldarine, Ling Xiao didn't bring him with him. Although he was Ling Xiao's personal servant and had always been trusted by the latter, but there were simply too many secrets on Ling Xiao. The fewer people who knew about it, the lower the risk of it being exposed. Roar! Floey suddenly roared and poked its head out to look at Ling Xiao pitifully. Hungry! Although the little magic dragon couldn't transform and open its mouth yet, Ling Xiao could clearly understand what it wanted to express. Pills? I have quite a few here. Ling Xiao took out the gift his mother gave him from his Chinquan bag and gently opened the jade bottle. A wisp of pill fragrance wafted out, and the entire sky suddenly darkened. Damn, a grade 6 pill. To be able to resonate with heaven and earth, this pill must have reached grade 6. Such a treasure was rare even in the Shenzhou continent, enough to attract the covetous eyes of countless experts. Roar! At this moment, Floey's dog eyes were about to pop out, and a trace of crystal flowed out from the corner of its mouth. For you. Ling Xiao poured out a white jade pill and casually threw it into Floey's mouth. Boom! In a short moment, the spiritual wind of heaven and earth gathered and turned into a whirlwind that fell on Ling Xiao's head. As expected of a grade 6 pill, its power is terrifying. Roar! Floey raised its head and let out a dragon's roar. Demonic aura surged around its body, and the next moment, it fell asleep in Ling Xiao's arms. It seems that the pill is too strong, but when you wake up, your cultivation level will probably have a breakthrough. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and casually threw Floey into the ancient glazed pagoda. Just as he was about to turn and leave, the sound of rushing wind suddenly came from the surrounding forest. The phenomenon of heaven and earth is here. Everyone split up and search. At the same time, a cry of alarm rang out. Ling Xiao shook his head with a smile and walked into the distance. Stop! But before he could go very far, a cold shout came from behind him. Kid, who are you? Did you see any treasures appear here? A stalwart figure descended from the sky and looked coldly at the youth in the distance. However, just as the young man slowly turned around, his expression suddenly froze. Plop! Kneeling is an attitude. Whether I die or not, what can I do? I'm also panicking now. Chapter 120. Spare me, sir. Spare me, sir. The newcomers were naturally experts from the aristocratic families of Frosty Sky City. After seeing this strange phenomenon in the mountains, they came here to search for treasures. But they didn't expect to run into this little ancestor of the Ling people before they could find any treasures. Patriarch, why are you crying? It wasn't until a voice came from beside him that the kneeling figure slowly came back to his senses. When he looked up again, Ling Xiao was nowhere to be seen. I don't know either. I'm just so happy. The shadow of the Sea Clan's destruction had yet to dissipate in Frosty Sky City. Ling Xiao's ruthlessness was a nightmare for the people of these small clans. Today, he was lucky enough to survive Lord Ling Xiao. If he didn't cry, it would be an insult to Sir's reputation. Setting Sun City. Today's city was even livelier than the day of Ling Xiao's engagement. Figures with powerful auras descended from the sky. Some were in groups of 3 to 5, and some were alone. They gathered from all directions. But what was strange was that although Setting Sun City was full of people, there wasn't any powerful aura. Even the cultivators who appeared in the city were mostly young men and women. Was this a joke? This was the land of the Ling people. When ordinary experts came to visit, they had to send a letter first. Otherwise, it would be seen as a provocation. No matter how good the fortune in this mountain was, no one dared to joke around with their lives. Senior Sister Fu, is this Setting Sun City? Master Ling Xiao's land? At this moment, a few young men in black were walking slowly on the streets of the city, escorting a beautiful woman. Yes, Fu Yinyao nodded. Her expression was cold and indifferent, but there was a trace of anticipation in her eyes. Sir, will we meet you here? Senior Sister, the spirit light only appeared for half a day before disappearing. I heard that some of the sex prodigies have already entered the mountain to search for treasures. That's right, Senior Sister. When are we leaving? I heard that the Cloudy Immortal sect has also sent disciples to Setting Sun City. The disciples were obviously very interested in the treasure in the mountain. Moreover, Fu Yinyao was the only successor disciple to lead the team. The rest of the team was made up of inner disciples who had been cultivating in seclusion in the Universal Devil sect all year round. Now that he had finally come out, his mood was naturally incomparably excited. Cloudy Dew Immortal sect. How dare they come to the Sunset Divine Mountain? Aren't they afraid that they won't be able to return after encountering Young Lord? Fu Yinyao sneered. As a supreme Taoism orthodoxy, the Thousand Tao Demon sect had many enemies in the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent. However, the Cloud Dew Immortal sect was their mortal enemy. The disciples of the Devil sect were cruel and bloodthirsty. Although they were not true devils, they were more or less tainted with the word devil. On the other hand, the Cloudy Dew Immortal sect had always considered themselves as the leader of the righteous Tao, and they took it as their duty to slay demons and eliminate devils. As such, the two supreme Taoism factions were never short of conflicts and grudges. It was even rumored that the previous young master of the Myriad Tao Devil sect was killed by the young master of the Milky Cloud Immortal sect. Whenever the disciples of the two sects met, there would inevitably be a fierce battle. Isn't this Junior Sister Fu? What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you in Setting Sun City. Just as Fu Yinyao's voice fell, a chuckle suddenly sounded from the gates of Setting Sun City. Fu Yinyao's pretty face turned slightly cold. When she turned her head to look again, she saw a few young men dressed in white. They had the demeanor of a transcendent being and were walking towards them. The leader was a handsome young man of about 20 years old. The young man was dressed in white and had an arrogant expression. There was a hint of mockery between his brows, and there was a flawless cloud pattern embroidered on his chest. They were the disciples of the Cloud Dew Immortal sect. So it's senior brother Ma Yang. Fu Yinyao sneered. The aura around her turned cold, as if she was about to face a great enemy. The Cloud Dew Immortal sect's core disciple, Ma Yang, had long reached the peak mystic pure stage. He was a famous genius in the eastern border. Behind him, the remaining Immortal sect disciples also looked at Fu Yinyao and the others mockingly. The killing intent on their faces was not concealed at all. Everyone had the right to kill the disciples of the devil sect. This was the ancient teaching of the Cloud Dew immortal sect. Even though the young master of the myriad Tao devil sect, Ling Xiao, was now famous everywhere, in the eyes of these immortal sect disciples, it was just an undeserved reputation. Tao laws? Invincible immortal? Puffed. He just had a good father. Moreover, which young master didn't have Tao laws? Moreover, wasn't the previous young master of the devil sect also known to be invincible and had the potential to become an immortal? In the end, wasn't he still killed by their young master Yinshu? The immortal sect had never interfered in a fight between peers. For the Cloud Dew immortal sect disciples, being able to kill a famous devil sect disciple meant that there was a chance for them to become a core disciple. For example, senior brother Ma Liang was said to have killed 10 devil sect disciples in a secret realm. That was why he was valued by an elder of the Cloud Dew immortal sect and accepted as a core disciple. As for Fu Yinyao, if she hadn't followed Ling Xiao, how could she be a core disciple of the devil sect? She would have been killed on the battle stage long ago. This world was fair, but some ideas were still deeply ingrained. Junior sister Fu, are you alone? Of course, no matter how arrogant Ma Liang was, he didn't dare to underestimate a peak Xianxing devil sect disciple. Although Fu Yunyao rarely fought, her cultivation was there for all to see. She also followed Ling Xiao all day long. Who knew if she had any powerful talismans in her hands? It had to be said that Ling Xiao's battle prowess aside, he really had a lot of treasures in his hands. With 2 immortal emperors backing him, and the Ling people and the Danyuan sacred ground, Ling Xiao probably had a few Dao weapons, let alone divine weapons. Senior brother Ma Liang, a good dog doesn't block the way. Fu Yinyao didn't want to pay attention to Ma Liang and was about to leave. Junior sister Fu, it's not easy for us to meet. I've admired you for a long time. I know a good tavern in the city. Why don't we go and have a few drinks? Ma Liang stood in front of Fu Yinyao and didn't hide the greed in his eyes. Fu Yinyao was the #1 beauty of the devil sect. If Ling Xiao liked Fu Yinyao, there was no need to say more about her beauty. He had to kill her. After all, although Ma Liang was a true disciple of the Cloudy Immortal sect, his reputation wasn't as good as the rest of the disciples. As long as he killed Fu Yunyao, he would definitely attract the sect leader's attention. At that time, he would be able to pick any treasures he wanted. However, it wouldn't hurt to play with her before killing her. I'm from the Immortal sect. I'm not playing with a good girl. I'm playing with a disciple of the devil sect. Senior brother Ma, you'd better get out of the way. Fu Yinyao's pretty face turned cold. A cold aura circulated around her body. Demonic intent rippled in her bright eyes. What if I don't? Junior sister, are you going to hit me? Ma Liang laughed presumptuously, and the disciples behind him sneered. If a woman dares to attack senior brother Ma, we'll let her know what it means to take turns. Ling Xiao might spoil you, but we won't. However, the moment Ma Liang finished speaking, Fu Yinyao's hand suddenly struck out. A sinister devilish seal shot out and viciously smashed toward Ma Liang and the other immortal sect disciples under the horrified gazes of Ma Liang and the others. Fu Yinyao, how dare you? Chapter 121. The sky demon chi swept across the land. The sky above Sunset Ancient City was suddenly filled with demonic shadows. Ma Liang narrowed his eyes, and a brush appeared in his hand. He casually tapped it twice in front of him, and a beam of spiritual light shot toward the demonic seal. Boom! The 2 attacks collided. Although neither of them had used their full strength, the momentum still attracted the attention of many people in Sunset City. There were only a few supreme orthodoxies in the entire Shenzhou Easter border. Ling people might be behind the 1,000 Dao Demon sect, but the Cloudy Immortal sect had been around for thousands of years and had a stronger foundation. Look, it's Fu Yunyao from the 1,000 Dao Demon sect and Ma Liang from the Cloudy Immortal sect. These 2 sects really fight wherever they go. What can we do? They're demons and immortals. I heard that the previous young master of the 1,000 Dao Demon sect was killed by the Cloudy Immortal sect. Interesting. Let them fight. When they're done, no one will fight with us for the fortune in Sunset Mountain. Junior Sister Fu, you brought this upon yourself. Ma Liang held the brush with one hand and stood with his other hand behind his back. He looked at Fu Yunyao mockingly. Compared to her, he was older and had been at the peak of the mystic clear stage for a longer time. Therefore, Ma Liang didn't think much of Fu Yunyao in terms of cultivation. Then I'll have a taste of senior brother Ma's strength. Fu Yunyao wasn't afraid. She waved her hand and strands of demonic qi intertwined, forming the shape of a square ancient seal above her head. The runes on the ancient seal flickered and seemed to have the power to destroy the world. I've heard that Junior Sister Fu's world destroying demonic seal is very domineering. Let me see if you're a true disciple of the Thousand Tao demon sect. Ma Liang sneered and pointed his brush in the air. A ferocious beast totem appeared out of nowhere. The demonic qi surged, and the beast Ma Liang drew seemed to break out of thin air and appeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Junior Sister Fu, be careful. The righteous path was the righteous path after all. Before attacking, he had to remind his opponent out of habit. If it was Ling Xiao, he would have taken advantage of his opponent's unpreparedness and killed him with a single palm strike. Buzz. Space trembled, and demonic beasts howled. Then, he turned into a stream of light and rushed toward Fu Yunyao. Seeing this, Fu Yunyao only sneered and waved her jade-like hand. The demonic seal above her head instantly pierced through the void and smashed down. Boom! In an instant, the entire sky above the setting sun ancient city was shrouded in demonic qi and spiritual light. Many cultivators from the small sects raised their heads to look at the two attacks that were in a deadlock in midair. Their eyes were filled with shock. As expected of a supreme Taoism orthodoxy, as expected of a true disciple, even an ordinary Pang cultivator would find it difficult to resist such power. However, at this time, Fu Yunyao's beautiful face raised a trace of ridicule, and the devil qi around her body surged again. As for the demonic seal in the air, it grew as the wind blew. In the short span of a single breath, it had expanded to 1,000 feet in size and directly suppressed the spirit beast that Ma Liang had drawn. Boom! The ocean-like spiritual energy dissipated. On both sides of the street, many disciples who were watching felt a gust of wind blowing toward them. Some of the weaker ones were directly sent flying several feet away. At this time, Ma Liang's eyes were also filled with shock and fear. His attack was broken, and even his aura instantly withered. How is this possible? Why did Fu Yunyao have a trace of Pang aura? Although the aura was very weak, it was not something that any profound, clear cultivator could resist. So powerful. Fu Yunyao is so powerful. How could she not be powerful? She follows Master Ling Xiao every day and absorbs young Master's essence. That's true. Master Ling Xiao is a role model in many men's hearts. I heard that he was engaged to Nian Qingyun, the goddess of the Tao Palace, yesterday, and the two of them did not leave the Cloud Peak for the entire night. No way. With Nian Qingyun's temperament, even if she is engaged, she would not let a man touch her. Hey, brother, what era is it now? Which woman can't be smashed by a spiritual treasure? That Ling Xiao lacks everything except spiritual treasures. That's true. Hearing the discussions around him, the eyes of an ordinary-looking young man in white gradually turned ferocious. Ling Xiao, you bastard. Lin Shi still remembered that when he was training with Nian Qingyun in the ancient battlefield, she would quietly leave at night. She would never stay with Lin Shi. But now, Lin Shi did not believe that with Nian Qingyun's character, she would be easily subdued by Ling Xiao. But there were always exceptions to everything. Hey, senior brother, someone is looking for you over there. Lin Shi patted the young man in front of him who was spreading the rumor and pointed in the direction outside the city. Who are you? Who is looking for me? The young man in a purple robe looked wretched. His small eyes immediately showed a hint of vigilance. What a joke. In this chaotic world, people would easily kill and steal treasures. Before he left, his master had specially reminded him that he must be careful. Oh no, did someone find out that I have a divine artifact? When he went down the mountain this time, His master had specially given him the only divine artifact in the sect to use as a life-saving measure. But who was the one who leaked the news? Could it be Senior Brotherly? No, it must be Senior Sister Sunday. She failed in her courtship and wanted to kill me. Yes, it must be so. With that thought in mind, a hint of coldness flashed in the purple-robed young man's eyes. It's a good-looking lady. She said she has admired you for a long time and wants to get to know you. She moved closer to his ear and whispered, "Oh, good-looking lady? Ha ha, I knew it. With my heroic appearance, I will be a star in the night sky wherever I go. This is so troublesome. Junior brother, what are you waiting for? Quickly lead the way." "All right, senior brother, follow me." She smiled coldly and led the way out of the city. No matter what happened between Yin Qingyun and Ling Xiao, he would not allow anyone to humiliate her. Moreover, if the two of them really, it must be Ling Xiao who forced Yin Qingyun. What else could he do? Of course, he chose to forgive her. Oh no, could it be that she took things too hard and committed suicide? Ling Xiao, just you wait. If Qingyun suffers any harm, I promise I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Senior brother Ma, it seems that your reputation as a true disciple of an immortal sect is undeserved. Fu Yinyao smiled faintly. Her green robe fluttered in the wind like a fairy. She was indescribably elegant and refined. The seal just now showed the majesty of the devil sect. It was laughable that Ma Liang had humiliated himself by provoking her. This time, the cloudy immortal sect had lost all face. Fu Yinyao, you are courting death. Ma Liang's face was ashen, especially in front of so many prodigies from the other sects. He was feeling very aggrieved. Are all the members of the cloudy immortal sect dogs like you who only know how to bark and not bite? Senior brother Ma, why don't we fight again and fight to the death? Fu Yinyao walked toward Ma Liang with light steps. Ma Liang's expression froze. He took 2 steps back in fear. Damn it, this is so embarrassing. It was simply too embarrassing. At this moment, Ma Liang felt like dying. He was a true disciple of an immortal sect. How could he be scared off by this devil sect witch? If news of this spread to the sect, he might not even be able to keep his title as a true disciple. He was too careless. If he knew that Fu Yunyao was half a step into the Pang state, he would not have dared to provoke her. Oh, junior sister Fu, are you calling my cloudy, immortal sect disciples dogs? At this moment, a faint laugh came from outside the ancient city. Chapter 122. Fu Yinyao was stunned when she heard the voice, while Ma Liang and the other immortal sect disciples' eyes lit up with joy. Senior brother Su Yuwei. A handsome young man in white slowly walked in from outside the city. Although there was a warm smile on his firm and calm face, the aura of Paoang was enough to shock the heavens and the earth. It was Su Yuwei, a true disciple of the cloudy, immortal sect. He had mastered the heaven yellow immortal technique to perfection, and even the young master of the cloudy immortal sect had to address him as senior brother. They did not expect him to come to the setting sun ancient city. It seemed that all the major sects valued the treasures in the mountains. Although secret realms had appeared frequently in the eastern border in recent years, the true treasures were mostly guarded by the vestigial clan. Moreover, whichever sect's territory these mystic realms appeared in, they would basically be taken over by that sect. The unwritten rule of the Shengzhou state was that it was not forbidden to fight over secret realms, but it was restricted to the younger generation. And now, the setting sun mountain range was filled with clouds that covered thousands of miles. It was likely that the treasures within were extremely rare. Since the 2 true disciples of the cloudy immortal sect were here, it seemed that they were determined to get the treasures. It's senior brother Su. Fu Yinyao's pretty face was also solemn. She naturally did not care about Ma Yang. After all, she had been by Ling Zhao's side all these years, and not only had she eaten a lot of Ling Zhao's divine essence, but she had also eaten a lot of pills. Her cultivation could be considered to have touched the threshold of the Paoang stage, but there was still a big gap between her and a true Paoang expert. Su Yuwei was a true disciple of the cloudy immortal sect, and he was much older than Fu Yunyao and the others. His cultivation had already entered the Paoang stage. Fu Yinyao would definitely die if she faced him. Haha, Junior Sister Fu, did you just say that my cloudy immortal sect is a dog that only knows how to bark? Su Yue nodded with a smile, and his expression was still gentle and calm. He did not seem angry at all. Hearing this, Fu Yinyao frowned slightly. She kept her mouth shut and clenched her jade-like hands. How about this, Junior Sister Fu? I won't make things difficult for you. Kneel down and bark like a dog, and I'll spare you today. How about it? Su Yue smiled indifferently, but the coldness in his eyes was quietly biting cold. A few mere disciples of the devil's sect dared to be so arrogant? What was wrong with this world? Boom! An invisible force instantly enveloped Fu Yunyao and the others, causing the expressions of many devil sect disciples to change drastically. The Paoang realm was the threshold of the immortal path. Only after entering the Paoang realm and opening the Soul Palace would one's aura contain a wisp of the might of heaven and earth. Just this pressure alone wasn't something that an ordinary, profound, clear cultivator could resist. Not to mention that Su Yue was using almost all of his strength to intimidate them. Puchi, Fu Yinyao's pretty face paled. She stood in front of the disciples and bore the brunt of the pressure. She had to bear the brunt of it all by herself. Blood immediately flowed out from the corner of her mouth. In a tea house in the distance, Nian Qinyun stood before the window with her hands behind her back. Her black brows were slightly knit together, while a wisp of hesitation flashed through her bright eyes. Fu Yinyao was a true disciple of the myriad Dao demon sect. In other words, she was Ling Zhao's senior sister. If she was humiliated by Su Yue today, would that bastard lose face? After all, this wasn't a grudge between disciples. It was a battle between two supreme orthodoxies. No, why would I care about his face? What's wrong with me? What does his death have to do with me? If he loses face or gets beaten to death, shouldn't I be happy? Nian Qingyun was suddenly stunned. She clenched her jade-like hands tightly, and a hint of panic appeared on her pretty face. Humph, bastard Ling Xiao. You better not appear in the sunset ancient city. Otherwise, I will definitely kill you. How is it, Junior Sister Fu? Isn't that what you're best at? Ma Yang sneered, especially when he saw Fu Yinyao's pale little face. His eyes were full of joy. Bitch, where did your arrogance go just now? Watch how I capture you later. I will tie your neck with a metal chain and whip you. I will make you kneel in front of me and crawl like a dog. Don't even think about it. I won't. Fu Yunyao gritted her teeth. Her expression was cold, but her pale face made people feel pity for her. Sigh, this Ma Yang is really a dog. He didn't even dare to let out a fart when he was defeated. Now that Su Yue is here, he is the only one who is shouting happily. That's right. Bullying a female disciple is not a big deal. If he is so capable, he should go and shout at the Devil Sect's young master, Ling Xiao. Hee, does he dare? He can't even defeat Fu Yunyao. I heard that young Master Ling Xiao has already comprehended the power of law and is invincible. Not to mention Ma Yang. Even Su Yue wouldn't be a match for young Master. One round? You're making me laugh, brother. I heard that when Master Ling Xiao and Goddess Nian got engaged, a Sky Pride who had touched the threshold of the Tao challenged him. In the end, Master Ling Xiao squeezed the shit out of him with one hand. He really squeezed the shit out of him? Why would I lie to you? My third uncle's cousin's niece is working as a servant girl in Ling people. I saw it with my own eyes. She pooped all over the ground. Ugh. Lin Shi's face was ashen. He patted the two people who were bragging. Senior brother, someone is looking for you over there. You don't want to die? Then you can go and die. Su Yue shook his head and smiled. He had a look of pity on his face. Green light shone in his hand as he gently grabbed at Fu Yunyao. The sky suddenly changed color. It was as if a huge hand was pressing down from the sky, wanting to suppress and kill all the demons in the world. Fu Yunyao's face turned pale. How could she not feel the monstrous power contained in this seal? Once it landed, all the disciples of the Devil Sect present would die. However, just as she was about to activate all the spiritual energy in her body and take out her spiritual treasure, a green light suddenly tore through the sky. Just like that, The terrifying palm shattered into starlight. At the same time, a mocking sneer suddenly came from above. "Haha, I was wondering who dared to behave so atrociously in my Sunset City. So it's the dog senior brothers of the cloudy, immortal sect." Hearing this, the entire Sunset City fell into a deathly silence. Even the gentle expression on Su Youwei's face instantly froze. He raised his head and looked at the figure sitting on the golden carriage in the sky. His eyes suddenly narrowed. He's here, he's here. He's here riding the wind and breaking the waves. Young master. The corners of Fu Yunyao's mouth suddenly curled into a faint smile. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, staining her chest red. Ling Xiao. Su Youwei gritted his teeth, as if he was facing a great enemy. Although he was a true disciple of the cloudy immortal sect, his reputation in the eastern border of the Shengzhou could not compare to the person in front of him. The young master of the myriad path demon sect, the successor of the ancient Ling people, the son-in-law of the ethereal Dao Palace, and the prospective chosen of the Danyuan sacred land. Any one of these names in the Shengzhou was an intimidating existence. To be honest, Su Youwei was a little flustered. But even if he was flustered, he could not lose face for the righteous path. "Senior brother Su, I heard that the true disciples of the cloudy immortal sect like to bark like dogs. Kneel down and bark twice, and I'll spare your lives today. Otherwise, you'll all die." Chapter 123. Domineering and powerful. Absolutely not to be provoked. This descendant of the Ling people, the Devil Sect's young master, was exactly as the rumors said. Ling Xiao descended from the sky and stood in front of Fu Yunyao, gently wiping away the blood at the corner of her mouth. His white robe shone with starlight, and he looked like a transcendent being. Many of the girls in Sunset City unconsciously clamped their legs together. "Senior Fu, I'm sorry I'm late." "Young master." Fu Yunyao was on the verge of tears. "I'm so touched." The young lord was simply a gentle and noble young master, a clear stream in the muddy world. Look at him. His eyes are filled with love. The young master's smile was filled with sorrow. At that moment, all the grievances and hesitation in Fu Yunyao's heart disappeared. All she had was the urge to make love to the man in front of her. A woman in love was a peerless beauty. On the entire street, everyone's eyes unconsciously fell on her. Nian Xingyun's eyes turned cold when she saw this. She emitted a cold aura, causing all the customers in the tea house to run out into the street. "Damn it, what's going on?" "I don't know. I thought my wife was here." "Look at you. Just now, Miss Fu's eyes almost popped out." "You're good. Wipe your saliva. Oh, let's start with that painting, Bebe." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and turned to look at Ma Yang. He could feel that Ma Yang's aura was extremely weak. It was obvious that he had just fought someone. He was most likely the cause of today's incident. He hit his junior brother, and his senior brother backed him up. It was the same old routine. Ma Yang's face turned green, and hesitation flashed across his eyes. He couldn't even defeat Fu Yunyao. Now that the Devil Sect's young master was here, he didn't even have a shred of resistance. His previous clamor was just to look down on his opponent. Who knew that Ling Xiao would really come? Dao Law Demon, invincible immortal. Not everyone was worthy of these words. But to bark like a dog, he was a true disciple of a supreme immortal sect. If he barked like a dog in Setting Sun City today, his master would probably beat him into a retard when he returned to the sect. Ma Yang clenched his fists, but his rationality told him that he had to endure and wait. "Senior brother Su, go. Senior brother Su, go. If you don't go up and I don't go up, then who will bring glory to the immortal sect? Senior brother Su, go." "Isn't junior brother Ling going too far?" As expected, Su Youwei snorted coldly and walked up to Ma Yang. He knew that his background was absolutely incomparable to Ling Xiao's. However, he was still a little confident in his cultivation. Otherwise, the young master of the Cloudy Dew Immortal Sect would not be so respectful in front of him and call him senior martial brother. Moreover, the more famous Ling Xiao was, the more likely the entire Shenzhou continent would know of Su Youwei's name if he could trample him under his feet. The powerful cultivators of the sect would not interfere in a fight between peers. As long as Su Yue won openly, neither the Universal Demon Sect nor the Ling people would have the face to attack him. What did the righteous path care about? Fame, of course. The hesitation on Su Yue's face disappeared in an instant. So what if a mere 17-year-old boy understood the Tao law? I, Su Yue, have attained the Tao and entered the Pang stage. I am 29 years old, and my cultivation is close to the mid-stage of the Pang stage. Going too far? Senior Marshal Brother Su, that's not right. I am clearly bullying you bastards. How is this going too far? Ling Xiao smiled disdainfully. There was no one in the younger generation of the Shengzhou continent who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Su Yue was not even the young master of the immortal sect. Why did he have to be so arrogant in front of him? You are courting death. Hearing this, Su Yue could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. A clear light flashed in his hand, and his entire body turned into a flash of light as he charged towards Ling Xiao. Buzz! Suddenly, the space buzzed and strong winds blew. The power of the Pang stage surged like a broken dam, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. In the tea house, Nian Qingyun's pretty face froze. She instinctively felt a little nervous. Naturally, she had seen Ling Xiao's strength with her own eyes. However, the Pang stage and the Xianqing stage were the watershed on the path of cultivation. Lin Shi's talent was close to demonic, but in the end, he had not taken that step. As for Su Yue, although Nian Qingyun had never heard of his name, his aura was indeed a little frightening. You are courting death. Ling Xiao shook his head and stepped forward lightly. The world suddenly darkened. The power of the sea instantly shattered the void. It was as if the stars were falling and the sun and moon were reversing. Su Yue did not even have time to react before he felt a strong force wrap around his neck. Then his body was held in Ling Xiao's hand like a dead dog. Damn! Ruthless. So cruel. Gulp. The entire Sunset City fell into a deathly stillness. Everyone looked at the true disciple of the immortal sect who had been majestic a moment ago, but was captured by Ling Xiao in the blink of an eye. Their eyes were filled with shock. It was even to the extent that when Ling Xiao attacked just now, it was only in a split second and not a single strand of the energy of the Tao laws emanated from his body. A Pang stage genius did not seem to have the slightest resistance in front of him. His strength, just how terrifying had it reached? Invincible immortal aura crushing a generation. It turned out that the successor of the Ling people was really standing at a height that they could not hope to reach. Senior Brother Su now, do you want to bark like a dog, or do you want to die? Ling Xiao smiled. Compared to killing these disciples of the immortal sect, breaking their Tao hearts was undoubtedly more cruel. Of course, the villain would be as sinister as possible. Don't even think about it. My immortal sect disciples can be killed, but not humiliated. Today, even if you kill all of us, we will also. Woof, 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 woof. Before Su Yue could finish his sentence, a series of hurried barks came from behind him. Ma Liang and the others knelt on the ground and raised their heads to bark like dogs. Some of the disciples even had their tongues hanging out of their mouths. It was very realistic. Puffed. Su Yue spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted in Ling Xiao's hands. You know what's good for you? Ling Xiao smiled faintly as his eyes flashed. He threw Su Yue to the side and turned around to take Fu Yunyao's hand. They walked towards the end of the street. At the same time, the disciples of the demonic sect looked at Ling Xiao with endless admiration. The young master is unparalleled, and the young master is the most dazzling. If what happened today were to spread, the entire eastern border would be shaken by the name of the young master. He could easily crush a Pang stage genius to death with one palm. What kind of combat power is this? What kind of ferocious power is this? Invincible immortal beauty is nothing more than this. However, just as Ling Xiao passed by the crowd, his expression froze. In front of him, a delicate and pretty young girl was looking at him with eyes full of admiration. There was a hint of shyness on her tender and white face. The young girl was wearing a yellow robe. She was graceful and tall. On her chest, there was a flame totem embroidered on it. Miss you, Ling Xiao. Stop right there. At this moment, a soft shout came from the void in the distance. Then, a beautiful figure in white tore through the void and arrived. The ancient sword in her hand bloomed with a monstrous divine radiance. The sword viciously slashed towards Ling Xiao's head. Chapter 124. In the originally quiet ancient city, there were suddenly sounds of people sucking in cold air. With Lord Ling Xiao's reputation in the sunset sacred mountain, there was still someone who dared to draw a sword against him. Provocation. Blatant provocation. Although the crowd did not know which sect genius had the guts to do so, her fate buffed. He looked at Su Yuwei, who was still unconscious. He was a famous righteous genius of the eastern border immortal sect. His righteous spirit was as bright as the morning sun. But so what? Demons could not defeat righteousness. In this world, demons were the ones who lost. Damn, her back is so beautiful. But when the crowd saw the woman who fell from the sky, their expressions froze again. Why does this figure look so familiar? It's the divine lady of the Tao Palace, Nian Qingyun. Another round of gasps resounded through the air. All of the cultivators in Sunset City looked up at the beautiful figure in the air with excitement in their eyes. Her white robe fluttered in the wind. It was an indescribable beauty that could topple the world and move one's soul. But wasn't this divine lady just engaged to Lord Ling Xiao? Why did she draw her sword against him now? Ling Xiao, die! Nian Xingyun's eyes were cold, and the ancient sword in her hand was sharp. However, when the sword landed, it did not deviate from its target and landed on Fu Yinyao's body. Be careful. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, and he pushed her away. Then his figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Nian Xingyun. Wife, what are you doing? I'm going to kill you, you bastard. Nian Xingyun's eyes were even colder. She did not give Ling Xiao any chance to explain. Her spiritual energy was boundless, and the sword in her hand was endless. The space shook, and the clouds collapsed. The fierce aura swept through the sky, and the crowd was shocked. But even though this sword move was incomparably terrifying, why was it unable to strike young Master Ling Xiao? Gradually, the crowd's faces were filled with amusement. Although this goddess was boasting, her every move was dodging the important points and slashing at the air. How was this trying to kill Ling Xiao? This was clearly a show of affection. Many of the sky prides of the ancient race were heartbroken. Their hearts were filled with sorrow. What happened to the great Tao of mercilessness? Why did she start abusing single dogs in just one day? Woof, 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 woof. At the same time, the entire Sunset Ancient City was filled with the barking of dogs. In the crowd, Lin Shi clenched his fists. As he looked at the two figures in white robes fluttering in the wind, his fingertips nearly pierced into his flesh. How could he not see that although Nian Xingyun's aura was terrifying, it did not contain any killing intent? As for the successor of the Ling people, he was even more laughable. He had a gentle smile on his face from beginning to end. This adulterous couple. Wife, you've been fighting for a long time. You must be tired. Nian Xingyun's sword slashed down, but Ling Xiao cleverly dodged it. He took the opportunity to grab her hand and pull her into his arms. Look, the treasures in this mountain are about to appear. If we fight to the death here, won't we be benefiting others? How about we fight to the death after we get the treasures? You let go of me. Nian Xingyun only felt her body heat up when Ling Xiao hugged her in front of everyone. Her pretty face turned red and alluring again. This Ling Xiao is too shameless. He's an old pervert. Let go of Goddess Nian. Many sky prides of the various sects were filled with righteous indignation. The news of Ling Xiao and Nian Xingyun's engagement had already spread throughout the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent. However, many people still could not accept seeing their beloved goddess being hugged in someone else's arms. Ling Xiao, I will kill you sooner or later. Nian Qingyun snorted coldly, but the spiritual power in her body quietly dissipated. She turned and coldly glanced at Fu Yunyao in the distance. This vixen pretended to be pitiful just now. It was really disgusting. Okay. I'll let you kill me. Ling Xiao smiled gently. He suddenly lowered his head and gently kissed Nian Xingyun's red lips through the veil. Wife, why don't you stay at my place tonight? This. On both sides of the street, everyone looked at the two people who were kissing as if there was no one else around. Their mouths and eyes were wide open. After a long while, they let out a cry of pain. Woof, woof, woof. You are shameless to the extreme. Nian Xingyun also looked at Ling Xiao with horror in her eyes. For a moment, she forgot to resist. It was only when she heard a burst of angry scolding that she pushed the young man in front of her away. Ling Xiao, you better remember this. Your life, sooner or later, will be mine. However, before Nian Xingyun's voice fell, Ling Xiao's palm once again grasped her jade-like hand. Okay. I got it. Wife, why don't we find a place to have a drink first? I won't. Nian Xingyun broke free from Ling Xiao's hand, looking a little angry. You want to trick me into drinking medicine again? Then, young master, we will find a place to stay first. Disappointment flashed in Fu Yunyao's eyes. She respectfully bowed to Ling Xiao and Nian Xingyun. She knew that in Ling Xiao's eyes, she was at most a servant girl with some value. In the entire Shangzhou, the only person who could be doted on by the young master was probably this goddess of the Dao Palace. Okay, Ling Xiao nodded, but his eyes inexplicably glanced at the crowd. Brother, you're here. Disguise technique? Haha, Lin Shi, you must not disappoint me. At this moment, how could he not feel the cold and resentful gaze? Moreover, he had left a spirit imprint on Lin Shi. Even if he turned into ashes, Ling Xiao would be able to recognize him, let alone disguise himself. As if sensing the mockery in Ling Xiao's eyes, Lin Shi's expression froze. He immediately lowered his head, feeling an inexplicable sense of unease in his heart. Could it be that he had recognized him? Impossible. Elder Ling said that even a divine king expert would not be able to see through his disguise. Hello. The largest auction house in Luori City, the Gathering Cloud Pavilion, will be holding an unprecedented auction today. There are many benefits and surprises. We hope that all young masters and ladies will honor us with your presence. Suddenly, a shout came from the end of the street. A few servants dressed in black were hawking along the way, attracting countless gazes. The Gathering Cloud Pavilion is holding an auction. Let's go take a look. The many prodigies who had been watching the show suddenly became interested. They lifted their feet and walked toward the city. The ruins in the mountains had yet to appear. Since they had nothing to do, they might as well try their luck at the auction house. If they could obtain a suitable numinous treasure, they would have more tricks up their sleeves when fighting for opportunities later. Looking at the figure in the crowd, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a mischievous smile. At this moment, his providence had already reached 2,000. Of course, Ling Xiao had put on an act just now not to show off his love or to fall in love with someone. He had just wanted to rob Lin Shi of all his providence as soon as possible. Villains were indeed greedy. However, if not for Nian Xingyun's providence being a little too high and her constitution being a little too special, son of destiny, daughter of destiny, perhaps there will be unexpected gains. Ling Xiao grinned. He dragged the reluctant Nian Xingyun along with him and followed the crowd. The auction house had always been the stage for those with providence. Chapter 125. I walk in the sunset, listening to the opera singers sing Beijing songs. People play clowns. Yi Huang retreats in autumn. Ling Xiao hummed a little tune, aimlessly looking at the various people on both sides of the street. Nian Xingyun's hand was a little cold, as expected of a woman who practiced the way of ruthlessness. She tried to pull her hand away several times, but Ling Xiao held it even tighter. Sunset City, what a terrible name. Nian Xingyun snorted. Sunset City is a little old-fashioned. Ugly, what are you looking at? It's you, come here. Ling Xiao waved his hand, and a wretched-looking young man on the street pointed at himself with a horrified expression. Is the Lord calling me? The Lord is calling me. Lord Ling Xiao is calling me. Lord, tell the Sunset City Lord that from today onwards, Sunset City will be renamed Qingxiao City. Plant peach blossoms on both sides of the street. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The wretched-looking young man trembled with excitement and rushed toward the city lord's mansion. With his background, even the Sunset City Lord had no right to see him, let alone Lord Ling Xiao. The pinnacle of life came so suddenly. Can you let go of me? Nian Qingyun looked deeply at Ling Xiao. Many times she felt that this successor of the Ling people was a little different from ordinary people. Why should I let go of you? Ling Xiao asked, putting his face in front of Nian Qingyun. She panicked and almost attacked Ling Xiao. Rascal, wife, I heard that you were protected by a divine beast when you were born. What about it? A profound look flashed across Ling Xiao's eyes. He was still a little afraid of Nian Qingyun's providence. 10,000 was far more terrifying than Lin Shi and Ling Tian of the Shangzhou continent. It seemed to have exceeded the settings of this world. Could it be that she was also a reincarnation of an expert, or the reincarnation of an immortal emperor? However, Ling Xiao did not sense any trace of intelligence from her body. This was a little strange. What does that have to do with you? Nian Qingyun snorted and looked at Ling Xiao indifferently. It has nothing to do with me. I just want to know more about you. Ling Xiao smiled embarrassedly. The goddess of the Holy Ji Palace was indeed difficult to deal with. If it was an ordinary girl, with Ling Xiao's status, as long as he showed a little bit of hospitality, he would be able to instantly make them fall for him. I don't need you to understand. You just need to remember that nothing will happen between us. Nian Qingyun said coldly. Even the expression on her face was as cold as when Ling Xiao first saw her. The merciless Great Tao was a bit of a headache. How was he supposed to deal with her flipping out faster than flipping through a book? The Gathering Cloud Pavilion was located in the center of Sunset Ancient City. It was said that behind this pavilion was the largest merchant alliance in the Shangzhou continent, the Cloud Gathering Merchant Alliance. At this moment, the pavilion was already surrounded by countless disciples of the various sects that had come to temper themselves on Sunset Mountain. Have you heard? Just now outside the city gate, the two core disciples of the Cloudy Immortal sect teamed up to bully Fu Yunyao of the Universal Demon sect, but they were crushed by Master Ling Xiao alone. Hey, don't you think the Cloudy Immortal sect brought this upon themselves? Before this spirit treasure even appeared in the world, it was already wiped out. That's nothing. Have you heard? Master Ling Xiao just kissed Goddess Nian at the city gate. That old pervert. How can that be called a forced kiss? Goddess Nian is Master Ling, Zhao's fiancée now. Don't talk about kissing. Huh? In front of the Gathering Cloud Pavilion, the elites of various races gathered in small groups and discussed what had happened in the city in low voices. Everyone had always known that Ling Xiao was very powerful. But in the past few days, what the successor of the Ling people had done could no longer be described as forceful. He had crushed the current generation and was invincible. Even a ruthless goddess like Nian Qingyun dared to publicly display her affection with him in front of everyone. What did that mean? It meant that it was not that the goddess was ruthless, but that he was not flirtatious enough. Hearing this, Nian Qingyun snorted coldly, and a chill swept out in an instant. The geniuses of the various clans who were whispering were shocked, and their faces turned pale instantly. Especially when they saw Nian Qingyun's murderous eyes. They were so scared that they almost wet their pants. She's right. Why are you scaring her? The corners of Ling Zhao's mouth curled up into a warm smile as he secretly gave them a thumbs up. Everyone, the auction is about to begin. Please come in. A beautiful servant girl suddenly walked out of the Gathering Cloud Pavilion. It was Luo Xiao. Lord Ling Xiao, this way please. She walked through the crowd and came to Ling Xiao and Nian Qingyun. She bowed slightly. Sunset City was the territory of the Ling people after all. The Gathering Cloud Business Alliance was the largest business alliance in the Shangzhou state and had a terrifying foundation. But in front of the Ling people, it was still not a deterrent. Ling Xiao nodded. Holding Nian Qingyun's hand, he followed behind the maidservant and walked into the pavilion. But at that moment, there was a quarrel at the entrance. Why can they go in, but we can't? A young man in white was looking at two servants of the business alliance, standing in front of the pavilion with a red face. He looked a little angry. Behind him, another girl in yellow was rubbing the corner of her clothes with an aggrieved look. She looked very nervous. Sorry, the seats in the Gathering Cloud Pavilion are limited. Please wait for a while. The two servants were very humble, but their words were full of disdain. Why? Of course it's because you're not qualified. Two early-stage Soul Sea disciples with no reputation or background wanted to enter the Gathering Cloud Pavilion. It was simply wishful thinking. You look down on us. Life is full of ups and downs. Don't bully us because we are poor. Let them go in. Just as the young man in white was about to leave angrily, a gentle laughter suddenly came from behind the two. Ling Xiao glanced at the girl in yellow calmly and nodded slightly. Lord Ling Xiao. The girl was stunned and lowered her head somewhat shyly. She was shocked by the domineering aura Ling Xiao displayed at the city gate just now. But why would such a peerless young master notice her, an unremarkable disciple of a small sect? One must know that those who could stand beside Lord Ling Xiao were all the top prides of the Shengzhou. At this moment, Lin Meng was a little confused and felt inferior. But there was an inexplicable joy in her heart. As for why Ling Xiao noticed her, don't ask. Asking is fate. Yes, young master. The two servants hurriedly bowed and welcomed Ling Xiao and Nian Qingyun into the Gathering Cloud Pavilion. But the young man in white frowned. For some reason, there was an unspeakable grievance in his heart. What is this? Pity me? Why should I, Yin Tianxing, be pitied by others? Junior sister Lin Meng. But when Yin Tianxing turned to look at Lin Meng, he saw a trace of confusion in the girl's eyes. His expression immediately froze. Junior sister, I don't think there's anything good in the Gathering Cloud Pavilion. Why don't we not go in? Senior brother, I want to go in and take a look. Bring me in to broaden my horizons. Lin Meng turned her head and smiled sweetly at Yin Tianxing. All right. Yin Tianxing gritted his teeth and did not say anything in the end. He lifted his foot and walked into the pavilion. Broaden my horizons? Doesn't broadening my horizons require spirit stones? I only have 100 coins on me. I can't even afford a cup of tea if I go in. Yin Tianxing suddenly felt that he had been too careless in bringing his junior sister down the mountain. Moreover, the way she looked at Ling Xiao was clearly filled with admiration. In the past, junior sister only had this kind of gaze when she looked at him. Damn Ling Xiao. Are you interested in that girl? Nian Qingyin turned her head and glanced at the young man beside her. What? How is that possible? I just feel that she's a little pitiful. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled, but a deep meaning flashed in his eyes. Another woman of destiny. Chapter 126. Ling Xiao had noticed this girl in yellow when he was at the city gate. It was not because of her beauty or talent. It was because of the familiar notification from the system. The Lady of Destiny had 1,000 providence. Although it could not be compared to Nian Qingyun and the others, it was better than nothing. Moreover, Ling Xiao could obtain a steady stream of providence from such a Lady of Destiny as long as he subdued her. Why not do it? Then, who is Yi Qingshan? Nian Qingyun was slightly stunned when she saw the calmness on Ling Xiao's face. Pity her? Why would the successor of the Ling people be so kind? However, his expression did not seem to be lying. Could it be that the rumors about him were deliberately spread by someone? Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. A trace of sadness flashed across his face. Alas, my wife, there's something you don't know. Yi Qingshan is an orphan girl I met in the lower realm. Both her parents died when she was born. She lived on the streets without food or clothing. When I met her, she was already about to starve to death. It's too miserable. Ling Xiao sighed. His expression gradually became serious. We cultivators go against the will of the heavens. We must eliminate evil, defend the Tao, and restore justice to the world. Although my strength is limited, I believe that as long as I start, there will be love everywhere in this world." This, Nian Qingyun's pretty face froze. She just asked casually. She did not expect Ling Xiao to explain it to her so seriously. She had heard that on the day of Ling Xiao's engagement, he had obtained a peerless divine sword from the sacred master of 10,000 swords. However, he had given it to the girl named Yi Qingchan. However, she really did not expect Yi Qingchan's background to be so miserable. It seemed that she had misunderstood him. She did not expect that the successor of the Ling people was not as ruthless and heartless as the rumors said. Instead, he was quite responsible. However, there seemed to be something wrong. Eliminate the demons and protect justice? Wife, I know that you have misunderstood me a lot, but I believe that sooner or later, you will know the real me. Ling Xiao glanced at the crowd with a desolate expression. Finally, his gaze landed on a white-clothed figure. Lin Shi, you better perform well later. All right, you don't have to say anymore. I know you're not in the wrong. It's just that in the past, I didn't care about how others maliciously slandered me. After all, when a person stands at a higher position, there will always be some slandering. If I respond to them one by one, it would seem that I'm not magnanimous enough. In the future, I won't indulge them anymore. Ling Xiao held Nian Qingyun's hand and walked to the seat behind Lin Shi before sitting down. This time, Nian Qingyun surprisingly didn't resist. There was even a trace of self-blame in her eyes. Yes, she had lived in the ethereal Dao Palace for a long time. Everything she knew about Ling Xiao was from others. As a result, before she even met him, she instinctively felt that he was an arrogant, ignorant, and despicable person who used his power to bully others. However, after getting along with him for 2 days, this successor of the Ling people not only had a tyrannical cultivation, but also a broad mind. He was like a dazzling light of the righteous path. Except for yesterday, when he was drinking wine. Humph, no, how can I be swayed by a few words from him? Nian Qingyun, you're cultivating the great Tao of ruthlessness. If you don't kill this Ling Xiao, your Tao heart will collapse. Beep, the destined woman's mind has changed slightly. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1,000 villain points. The voice in the system caused Ling Xiao's lips to curl into a mocking smile. These silly women, once they start imagining things, it's really fatal. However, he naturally couldn't let Nian Qingyun know about Yi Qingchan's identity. At the very least, he couldn't let her know before he completely conquered her. Time management and space management were broad and profound. Although Ling Xiao couldn't say that he had comprehended the true meaning, but so many seniors in his previous life had set an example and proved that it could be operated. As long as he was fast enough, time couldn't outrun him. Ling Xiao, I admit that I wronged you before, but don't expect me to forgive you for what you did last night. Nian Qingyun snorted coldly and turned her head to look elsewhere. However, when Lin Shi heard this, a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. What he did last night couldn't be forgiven. What did this adulterous couple do last night? Alas, you and I are husband and wife. Isn't it normal to do those things? Qingyun, I know you're cultivating the great Tao of ruthlessness, but you'll understand sooner or later that what I did, alas, it was all for you. Ling Xiao sighed, a bitter look on his face. For me? Nian Qingyun frowned slightly. If she had heard this in the past, she would have drawn her long sword and chopped this shameless bastard into pieces. However, when she thought of her slightly weakened cultivation, Nian Qingyun was actually a little confused. At this time, Lin Shi was on the verge of collapse. Between husband and wife? Apart from quarreling, isn't there nothing else between husband and wife? Could it be? Lin Shi's face turned pale, and a mouthful of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Then he swallowed it back down. I want it. What's the use of this iron rod? Damn Ling Xiao. Damn Nian Qingyun, I won't let you go. I definitely won't let you go. Ling Xiao looked at the trembling figure in front of him mockingly. The system's beautiful voice sounded in his ears again. Everyone, the auction officially begins. The first numinous treasure is the ancient 9 Tribulations divine sword. It is said that this sword was left behind by an ancient almighty. It was originally a peerless Taoist artifact. Although it is now 2 tribulations away, its power is still comparable to a low-grade divine artifact. Suddenly, a few scantily clad women walked over from the high platform in front of him. They held a rusty, ancient sword and introduced it to him. An ancient relic. Good stuff. The starting price is 10,000 spiritual stones. Each increment must be at least 1,000 spiritual stones. I bid 20,000, 30,000. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the auction house exploded. Many young prodigies fainted when they heard the words ancient. But a 9 tribulations divine sword that was 2 tribulations away would become a 7 tribulations divine sword. Breaking the sky with one hand and dancing with the other, one man and one sword, looking down on the 9 heavens. The sword was a good sword, but it was obviously a small surprise prepared for the son of destiny. Otherwise, with these rotten fishes and shrimps in front of them, it would be difficult for them to gather the remaining 2 tribulations. 40,000 spiritual stones. Sure enough, just as the atmosphere was getting tense, Lin Shi's voice suddenly sounded. 40,000 spiritual stones? Which sex prodigy is this? He dares to compete with the young master of the Great Spirit sect? I don't know. I've never seen him before. But looking at his cultivation, he's only in the Soul Sea realm. Even if he gets this treasure, he won't be able to walk out of Sunset City. Suddenly, there was a burst of discussion. Some prodigies looked at Lin Shi with a hint of mockery. On the path to immortality, you couldn't buy treasures with spiritual stones. Murders and robberies were a daily occurrence in Sunset City, especially for someone like Lin Shi who had no background and no cultivation. Getting a treasure was tantamount to suicide. 41,000 spiritual stones. But just as everyone was secretly sneering, a slightly languid voice suddenly rang out in the auction house. Chapter 127. Hearing the familiar voice behind him, Lin Shi's face instantly turned ferocious. This damned Ling Xiao. You stole my woman and my good fortune. I think you're F*** targeting me on purpose. Sure, this 9 tribulation sword was not as simple as a Tao artifact in ancient times. I vaguely remember that there was a 9 tribulation sword master who used this sword to break through the 9 heavens and finally become the supreme of heaven and earth. Although this sword is missing 2 tribulations, it is still not something that can be measured by spirit stones. Elder Ling's voice came from the ring. With the level of his divine soul, a mere Pong ant would not be able to sense it. Therefore, at this moment, he was somewhat unscrupulous. 9 tribulations, sword master. Lin Shi's eyes narrowed. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, 50,000 spirit stones. 51,000. However, just as Lin Shi's voice fell, Ling Zhao's voice came again. Lin Shi clenched his fists. He almost could not suppress the anger in his heart. Increasing the price by 1,000 spirit stones. Isn't this guy deliberately targeting me? Could it be that he has recognized my identity? Impossible. Although Elder Ling loved to brag, he still had his means. If he said that divine kings could not see my aura, then they definitely could not. Could it be that this Ling Xiao also saw the extraordinariness of this sword? Lin Shi hesitated for a moment. Finally, he shouted a terrifying price again. 70,000 spirit stones. This, a low-grade divine artifact, logically speaking, should be worth this price. However, this divine artifact was incomplete. Although it was an ancient artifact, but with the cunning of the Gathering Clouds Pavilion, if this sword still had its power, how could they take it out to auction? 70,000 spirit stones. This kid is quite rich. At this moment, many people looked at Lin Shi differently. There was a faint trace of greed in their eyes. Humph, we are not interested in your wealth. It's just that you dare to compete with Lord Ling Xiao for a treasure. Aren't you courting death? 71,000 spirit stones. Ling Xiao still shouted a price very carelessly. With his wealth, Not to mention 70,000 spirit stones. 700,000 spirit stones was a drop in the ocean. However, the desire to kill Lin Shi in one go was really too boring. It was more exciting to play bit by bit like this. F***CK. Shi, don't be rash. Just as Lin Shi's spiritual power began to circulate, and he was about to shed all pretense of cordiality with Ling Xiao, a cool and refreshing feeling suddenly came from the ring. There's no benefit in falling out with him now. Don't forget, this is Sunset City. Lin Shi took a deep breath, barely suppressing the anger in his heart, but the killing intent in his eyes was almost tangible. Congratulations to Lord Ling Xiao for obtaining this treasure. Immediately, a maidservant on the high platform brought the 9 Tribulations sword to Ling Xiao's hand. This sword is obviously damaged, and it's seriously damaged. 70,000 spirit stones. You really have too much money to spend. Nian Qingyan ridiculed. She obviously felt that Ling Xiao had been taken for a fool. Perhaps the strange young man in front of them was someone the Gathered Cloud Pavilion had hired. Otherwise, how could a young man who could casually take out 70,000 spirit stones be a nobody? I know, I just have too much money to spend. Ling Xiao grinned, and Lin Shi, who was in front of him, almost spat out another mouthful of blood. But this sword is an ancient relic. Maybe it can regain its glory after finding the remaining 2 tribulations. What do you think? Do you like it? Ling Xiao held the 9 tribulations sword in his hand, and suddenly felt a wisp of desolation spread along his arm. At this time, he was a little puzzled. Where did all the ancient mighty people go? Why were their spirit treasures either sealed or destroyed, leaving them behind in the Shenzhou continent? Since ancient times, countless venerables and even saints had left legends here. But now, the strongest person in the Shenzhou was only a martial emperor. As for whether the sacred sect had venerables, the world did not know. But according to Ling Xiao, there should be. Otherwise, that group of hypocrites would not have been able to dominate the Shenzhou for thousands of years. You want to give it to me? Nian Xingyun's pretty face froze, and she looked at the young man beside her with some disbelief. 70,000 spirit stones. It was not a small number for the saints and young lords of the supreme sage orthodoxies. Although the ancient sword's power was not there, the price was there. Don't you use swords? There is a story behind this sword. Why don't you try it? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and handed the ancient sword to Nian Xingyun. Nian Xingyun's expression changed slightly, and a faint trace of surprise flashed across her beautiful eyes. Obviously, Nian Xingyun also felt a trace of suppressed emotion in the sword. As Ling Xiao said, if she could find the remaining 2 tribulations, the sword might really be able to regain its former glory. Not bad. Then I'll give it to you. After saying that, Ling Xiao did not look at Nian Xingyun again, as if 70,000 spirit stones were not worth mentioning in his eyes. Pretending to be pretentious was the most fatal. Of course, Ling Xiao did not do this just to make Nian Xingyun happy. Since this sword was an ancient relic, it was obviously prepared for the Son of Destiny. He was a person without providence, and the probability of finding the remaining 2 tribulations divine swords was almost 0. But Nian Xingyun was different. She was the daughter of destiny with the highest providence that Ling Xiao had ever seen. This sword was undoubtedly easier to trigger opportunities in her hands. By then, Ling Xiao would probably be able to completely subdue her. It was the same no matter who had the ancient sword. The next item is the 9-dragon roaring cauldron. This cauldron was left by a medicine emperor. It is a low-grade divine weapon. The starting price is 10,000 spirit stones. On the high platform, the charming maidservant once again took out a soul treasure. However, this time, Ling Xiao did not follow suit and bid. He had no use for low-grade divine weapons at all. Even in his Qinkuan bag, there were dozens of low-grade divine weapons. But even if he did not like it, it did not mean that others did not like it. In particular, these talents from the holy sects and ancient clans had one more divine weapon, which meant that they had one more life-saving trump card. It is a medicine cauldron. Unfortunately, its grade is too low. Lin Shi shook his head and did not bid again. 30,000, 50,000. Very quickly, the price of this low-grade god artifact was pushed up to 50,000 god artifacts. Senior Brother Ian, when do you think we can have our own sacred cauldron? Behind Ling Xiao, a girl's voice was full of envy. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and turned to look at the girl in yellow. You like this cauldron? Lord Ling Xiao, I. Lin Ming's face turned red, and even her tone was a little panicked. Lord Ling Xiao is talking to me again. But at this time, Yin Tianxing, who was standing beside her, looked a little gloomy. He and Lin Ming were childhood sweethearts, and they had joined the same sect, the Fire Cloud sect. Yin Tianxing's grandfather was the first elder of the Fire Cloud sect, and Lin Ming was a forbidden area in his eyes. But today, Ling Xiao had repeatedly tried to please Lin Ming, which made him a little angry. 60,000 spirit stones. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. How could he not see the hatred in Yin Tianxing's eyes? However, Ling Xiao would not hesitate to kill a Soul Sea realm, and even if he was a disciple of a supreme sage orthodoxy, let alone someone without any foundation. But if Ling Xiao did that, he would inevitably attract the hatred of the girl in yellow. Even if she was forced to submit to Ling Xiao in the end, she would not be able to contribute her providence. Give him some stimulation and make him go crazy. Everything would be done naturally. The poor couple, who were originally interested in each other, fell into Ling Xiao's trap when they went down the mountain to watch the show. How tragic. 70,000 spirit stones. But just as Ling Xiao was calculating in his heart, a reckless voice suddenly came from the front. Chapter 128. This is interesting. Ling Xiao looked at Lin Shi in front of him, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Life is short. I think you won't give up until you're dead. 90,000 spiritual stones. 100,000. You're crazy. The Green Demon Divine Cauldron I left you is a classic inheritance of the Lao sect of the Imperishable sect. This is just a low-grade divine artifact. You. Elder Ling's voice contained a trace of anger. It seemed that this disciple of his had been provoked by Ling Xiao to the point of going crazy. Elder Ling, please calm down. I don't want this cauldron. Lin Shi smiled coldly, and a trace of light flashed in his eyes. With his vision as the son of destiny, he naturally wouldn't be interested in treasures that weren't related to ancient times. The reason he raised the price now was to cheat Ling Xiao. Otherwise, if he encountered something he liked later, wouldn't it be snatched away by Ling Xiao? This dog snatched my 9 tribulation sword just now. It's time to pay the price. You want to cheat me? However, how could Lin Shi's thoughts escape Ling Xiao's eyes? He sneered and stopped bidding. Time passed slowly, and a trace of panic appeared in Lin Shi's eyes. I only have 100,000 spiritual stones. If I spend it on such a useless treasure, Lin Shi suddenly wanted to cry. He couldn't help but ask Ling Xiao, Big brother, why don't you bid? It shouldn't be. This descendant of the Ling people was willing to spend 70,000 spiritual stones for a broken ancient treasure. Wasn't he going to use this cauldron to pick up girls? Why did he give up now? No one else is bidding. On the high platform, the charming woman also looked at Ling Xiao with surprise. She obviously felt that stopping at this time was too fitting for her young master's noble temperament. Congratulations to this young master for successfully bidding for the 9 Dragons Heaven-Roaring Cauldron. Damn, this Ling Xiao really stopped bidding. Lin Shi swallowed hard and took the ancient cauldron from the maidservant with trembling hands. There were traces of tears in his eyes. Oh, as expected, young master was just asking. A trace of disappointment flashed across Lin Meng's face. For a moment, she thought that Ling Xiao was auctioning this divine cauldron for her. Don't you have plenty of spirit stones? Why aren't you bidding anymore? Nian Qingyan sneered. It seemed that whenever she was with Ling Xiao, she would talk too much. Oh, I just remembered that I have a divine cauldron in my hands. Ling Xiao scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. Pucci, finally, the blood that Lin Shi had just suppressed gushed out once again. What's your name? Ling Xiao casually took out a crimson cauldron from his Chinquan bag. It was the chaos cauldron that he had obtained when he killed Qin Feng, and its grade was slightly higher. My name is Lin Ming. Lin Ming blushed and didn't even dare to look into Ling Zhao's eyes. The fire cloud sect that she belonged to was just an inconspicuous sect in the eastern border. As for her beauty, compared to Yin Qingyun, forget it. Even compared to Fu Yunyao, there was a huge gap. How can I win young master's favor? Lin Ming? Green Mist Forest, Lingering Dream. Good name. Ling Xiao nodded. As expected of the three ancient overlord clans, the Lin, Qin, and Xiao clans indeed produced geniuses generation after generation. 9 out of the 10 chosen ones came from these 3 clans. The remaining 1 most likely died from natural disasters. Young master, is young master praising me? Lin Ming covered her red lips with both hands, and her delicate body trembled slightly due to excitement. With her status, it was impossible for her to have any interaction with Ling Xiao. One had to know that there were many geniuses in the Shengzhou waiting for young master to take a second look. This chaos cauldron is also a divine artifact. You and I are fated to meet, so I'll give it to you. Ling Xiao handed the ancient cauldron to Lin Ming. This, Lord Ling Xiao, this cauldron is too precious. We can't accept it. A gloomy look flashed across Yin Tianqing's eyes. But with his strength, he didn't dare to offend the successor of the Ling people. He could only refuse with a bitter smile. He had already secretly made up his mind. When he returned to the sect, he would immediately ask his grandfather to arrange a marriage between him and Lin Ming so that he could completely possess Lin Ming. Even if Ling Zhao's background was powerful, he wouldn't fight to be the one to take it over, right? You? Did I say I'm giving it to you? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and shook his head slightly. No one dares to refuse my gift. Domineering. Strong. Not to be provoked. Young master. Lin Ming was clearly at a loss. She secretly glanced at Yin Tianqing. It was obvious that she was still very dependent on this senior brother. Don't worry, I don't have any other intentions. I just see that we are fated to meet. A divine artifact is not worth mentioning to me. Ling Xiao smiled gently. There was no longer any fierceness on his face. He reached out and handed the ancient cauldron to Lin Ming. Thank you, young master. Lin Ming's eyes were filled with admiration. Although there was no love in them, that kind of respect was genuine. With money, one could really do whatever one wanted. However, if he wanted this innocent girl to submit to him, he had to think of a way to kill this senior brothering first. It was easy to kill him. He was just an ant. But he had to make it it had to be flawless. He had to use a little trick. Oomph. Yin Qingyun snorted. A cold aura circulated around her. What's wrong? Is your nose uncomfortable? Ling Xiao reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. Take your dirty hand away. Yin Qingyun's tone was cold. She didn't even look at Ling Xiao. Are you angry that I gave something to someone else? Ling Xiao sighed. His tone suddenly became serious. Yes, Yin Qingyun blurted out. Her pretty face instantly turned red. She looks a little like Mother when she was young. Ling Zhao's eyes revealed a trace of loneliness. At this time, Yin Qingyun was completely attracted by the expression on his face. That expression, there was a story. Wasn't Ling Zhao's mother the #1 alchemist in the eastern border, the sacred lord of Xianyuan? That's right. It seemed that when Ling Xiao was 10 years old, the sacred lord of Xianyuan left the Ling people and returned to the Danyuan sacred ground. She swore that she would never set foot in the Ling people again. For a 10-year-old child to suddenly lose the love and care of his mother must be very painful. Thinking of this, the coldness on Yin Qingyun's face disappeared in an instant. It turned into a rare touch of gentleness. I'm sorry. What's there to be sorry about? I said that you will slowly understand the real me. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His face was free and easy. It was as if he was used to such misunderstandings. F***CK. When have I seen the moon of Xianyuan when she was young? As a woman, sometimes her sympathy was overflowing. Most of them have no resistance to kind, upright, filial, sunny, handsome, caring, responsible, motivated, and persistent men who have a lot of money. However, when Yin Qingyun saw this scene, she couldn't help but feel a trace of heartache. It's me. I've wronged him. But why do I feel heartache? Chapter 129. Ling Xiao. Actually, Nian Qingyun hesitated for a moment and suddenly looked seriously at the young man beside her. Ling Xiao's performance today was indeed far from the rumors. He was chivalrous, loyal, kind, and even respected her mother. Nian Qingyun saw a different demonic sex young master. Wife, if there's anything that can't be said between us husband and wife. Ling Xiao looked puzzled, but he sneered in his heart. It was obvious that the woman of destiny was gradually lowering her guard and opening her heart to him. Ling Xiao. Actually, Lin Shi and I met in an ancient battlefield. Nian Qingyun sighed softly, but her eyes gradually turned cold. She still couldn't let go of what she said to Ling Xiao that day. The first time, although Ling Xiao had already verified it, she still didn't want him to have a trace of a grudge in his heart. Oh, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. In fact, he already knew what the two of them had experienced without Nian Qingyun telling him. It was nothing more than a story of a young man from a small clan who risked his life to help the woman of destiny get out of a predicament. The woman was grateful and felt that the young man was a little different. Then, the two of them experienced hardships and feelings for each other. The ants successfully counterattacked and captured the dream goddess of all the Shenzhou geniuses, slapping the faces of all the chosen of the large clans and descendants of the ancient clans. But do you think the woman's heart was moved by an ordinary-looking person with a cliché name? What a joke. The woman's heart was moved by the talent that this person gradually revealed. There was indeed true love in this world. Of course, the premise was that you were strong enough. Lin Shi. Is your father Lin Dong? Is your uncle Lin Bei? Is your eldest cousin Lin Nan? This name is not old-fashioned and doesn't seem to match the main character's style. I'm Ling Xiao. Ling, as in heaven and earth, Xiao, as in the sky piercing through the clouds. Back then, I was poisoned and unable to move. It was Lin Shi who risked his life to stop the wave of demonic beasts for me. As I said before, he is the first person that I feel indebted to. Nian Qingyun's pretty face was a little red. She was a little shy to talk about the past in front of Ling Xiao. Would he mind? That should be the case. After all, which man would allow his woman to live and die with another man? Even if he was forced to do so, he would still hold a grudge, right? For some reason, Nian Qingyun felt a little disappointed. At this moment, Lin Shi's body began to tremble uncontrollably. So Qingyun still remembered. It turned out that she had always had me in her heart. She said all this to make it clear to Ling Xiao that the person she loves is me, right? The grievance and resentment he felt just now vanished in an instant. Lin Shi even felt a little touched. The happiness of a bootlicker was sometimes quite simple. I allow you to become someone else's woman, but when you're sad and lonely, you must remember that I'm waiting for you. I don't expect you to love me wholeheartedly. You're right, I'm not worthy, but at least I have a special place in your heart. Qingyun, drink more hot water. Oh, there's such a thing? Qingyun, you're too careless. I have some antidote pills here. They were personally refined by my mother. Take them with you. Alas, that Lin, she is a good person. How would he not be a good person? He gave him a talented girl and good fortune. Perhaps he would even give him the old grandpa in the ring in the end. But in this world, good people don't live long. Ling Xiao smiled gently and took out a porcelain white jade bottle from his chinquin bag. If Nian Qingyun really had feelings for Lin Shi, she wouldn't have said those words in front of him. Since she said those words, it proved that the thread of affection between the two of them was completely broken. At this moment, Nian Qingyun's pretty face had already turned blank. She looked at the smile on Ling Xiao's face and his black eyes that were as deep as the sea. Her eyes suddenly turned red. It had been so many years. She hadn't shed tears for so many years. But at this moment, she suddenly felt that something in her heart that she had persevered for more than 10 years was gradually crumbling. Wife, what's wrong with you? Take it quickly. Don't worry. I will be responsible for you in the future. If you want to go out and gain experience, I will accompany you. Whoever dares to touch you, I will kill them. If you want to go into seclusion, I will build a cottage where you go into seclusion and plant 2 cherry trees. When you come out of seclusion, I think the cherry blossoms will bloom and the sun will be warm. It just so happens that I also miss you." Ling Xiao reached out and gently stroked Nian Qingyun's cheek. The smile on his face was as bright as the morning sun. "But I still want to tell you, Miss Nian, the cherry blossoms are not as good as you." Boom! Nian Qingyun's body suddenly bloomed with a monstrous spiritual light. A wisp of biting cold spread out. In an instant, the faces of the surrounding prodigies from the ancient sects turned pale. They instinctively circulated their spiritual power to resist. Even in the auction house, several black-clothed figures with powerful auras walked out from the dark. They looked warily at the beautiful figure that seemed to be shrouded in frost. Whoosh! Nian Qingyun's figure suddenly rushed out of the auction house. Just as the black-clothed figures were about to stop her, a calm voice suddenly rang out. "If you dare to touch her, you will die." Ling Xiao understood that Nian Qingyun's Tao heart was in chaos. The ruthless Tao that she cultivated would not allow any flaws to appear in her Tao heart. It was obvious that she was gradually falling into the invisible net that Ling Xiao had woven for her. As for whether she would completely let down her guard or regain her ruthless Tao heart, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry. A chaste woman? A cold orphan? An arrogant goddess? Hee. In this world, there is nothing that is unchanging. If there was, it was only because the temptation was not enough. "Lord Ling Xiao, my Yunlai pavilion has a rule that no one is allowed to leave during the auction. Otherwise, touch her, and you will die." Ling Xiao sat calmly in the same place. There was not even the slightest fluctuation around him. Even so, the entire auction house fell into an oppressive atmosphere. Even the black-clothed experts standing around the trading company could feel a faintly discernible aura locking onto them. If they dared to make the slightest move, they would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. Xingzhou's #1 business alliance could not last 3 seconds in front of Ling Xiao. Haha, then let's continue. On the high platform, the charming woman glanced at Ling Xiao with some fear, and a smile bloomed on her face again. "The next auction item is somewhat special. Even our auction house does not know what it is, but according to an elder, it may be related to the spirit. In terms of wealth, the Yunlai Pavilion did not fear any faction. Of course, they could do whatever they wanted with money, but there were only so many top experts in the Xingzhou. Although there were many who were willing to work for the Yunlai Pavilion, there were not many who dared to go against the Ling people. Spirit stones were good things, but one had to be alive to spend them. Moreover, the Ling people were not the only ones standing behind Ling Xiao. The myriad Tao demon sect, the ethereal Tao palace, and the Danyuan sacred ground. Ordinary factions did not dare to provoke any of them. Ling Xiao might not be the #1 person of the younger generation. However, Ling Xiao was definitely not willing to pass on the title of the strongest person in the younger generation. As for his principles, of course, his life was more important. Oh, even the auction house does not know what it is. A playful look flashed across Ling Xiao's eyes. It's here. He did not come to the auction house simply to capture the heart of the girl. Of course, there was no lack of sincerity in spending money. But what was even more important than that was Lin Shi's fortune. Everyone, look, this is the stone. Although it looks like a stone on the outside, it is a stone that glows. Boom! All the lights in the auction house suddenly dimmed, and the black stone in the woman's hand emitted a dense white light. Chapter 130. Everyone, do you see it? The charming woman's gaze swept across the audience with a hint of charm in her eyes. Although there is no fluctuation on this round stone, this wisp of soul light is real. Everyone, it might be waiting for a fated person. There might be a peerless cultivation technique hidden inside. Hiss! Under her instigation, many of the ancient sect's geniuses blushed. Peerless ancient cultivation technique, strange soul light. Just thinking about it made them feel a little excited. The starting price is 1 spirit stone. Little brothers, it's only one spirit stone. This method was definitely suitable for a live stream. However, it was different from a live stream. This delicate woman was right in front of them. They could see her and touch her. Moreover, she was indeed good-looking. There was no need to use Eastern techniques. Unlike some famous live streams, she could not even recognize herself after turning off the filter. Every day, when she looked at herself in the mirror without makeup, she had to repeat it 3 times. Can't see, can't see, can't see, can't see. How exciting. Ling Xiao grinned. This thing was obviously prepared for a son of destiny like Lin Shi. Unfortunately, he had just cheated 100,000 spirit stones from him. His pockets were probably smoother than that stone now. However, he was a son of destiny. He definitely had his own way. For example, he had some rare treasures on him. At the critical moment, he could take them out to exchange for other treasures. This would be a slap to the face of those arrogant geniuses. Unfortunately, whether it was spirit stones or treasures, Ling Xiao had a lot of them. I'll pay 100 spirit stones. There was a sudden burst of bidding sounds in the auction house. Smart merchants did not set a lower limit. Naturally, there was no upper limit to the price. However, the more it was like this, the easier it was for people to feel that they had the ability to compete. This was the so-called sense of participation. It was similar to the sense of immersion of authors. Otherwise, look at Yin Tianxing, who only had a few coins left in his pocket. He looked eager to try. This fluctuation, it's right. It must be the 9 styles of soul sword left by the Soul Emperor. I just don't know which style it is. Lin Shi gritted his teeth. If he had not wasted 100,000 spirit stones earlier, this soul stone would have been at his fingertips. After all, not many of the ancient sects geniuses present could take out 100,000 spirit stones. Even if they could, they would not buy a glowing stone, right? However, Ling Xiao, just you wait. Sooner or later, I will trample you beneath my feet and make you understand what destiny is. Protagonists like to build a monument to their chastity. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. What was more popular now was sooner or later when I return, and so on. What can you do when you return? Ling Xiao looked at Lin Shi, who was trembling with excitement. In the end, he couldn't help but pat him on the shoulder. Brother, it's such a hot day. Why are you so cold? Look at your pale and sallow face. Your eyes are dull. One look, and I can tell that you're weak. I have some grade 3 earth yellow pills here. They're very cheap. Do you want? Are you selling horses? Lin Shi glared at Ling Xiao and took a deep breath, barely suppressing the excitement in his heart. 10,000 spiritual stones. Everyone's gaze instantly gathered on him. This guy just spent 100,000 spiritual stones to buy a cauldron, and now he wants to spend 10,000 spiritual stones to buy a stone orb. Is he trying to tell everyone what's the use of a cultivation cauldron? 11,000 spiritual stones. Without any hesitation, Ling Xiao immediately opened his mouth and made a bid. F***CK. Ling Xiao, do you dare to say that you're not deliberately targeting me? Lin Shi clenched his fists, but this time he wasn't angry. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. I really don't have any spiritual stones, but I have the #1 alchemist in the Shengzhou, Tian Hua, the Venerable, in my ring. Although Elder Ling's cultivation was no longer there, he had taught Lin Shi all his alchemy skills. Back when the Lin family was in decline, Lin Shi relied on alchemy to restore the Lin family's glory. But who knew that it would attract the revenge of Father Lin's enemies, the Ling people? In the past few years, Lin Shi had been experiencing life and death situations, constantly breaking through realms, but he had never stopped practicing alchemy. Moreover, he had fused with heavenly fire, so he had a unique advantage in alchemy. Therefore, although he didn't have many spiritual treasures, he had a lot of pills. Why was the poison that even Yin Qingyun couldn't resist ineffective against him? Of course, it was because the poison had been absorbed by Elder Ling, 11,000 spiritual stones. Is there anyone else? On the high platform, the charming woman's gaze fell on Lin Shi. She could see that there was only one person in the auction house who dared to challenge Lord Ling Xiao. Only this idiot. If there's no one else, then this. Wait. Just as the woman was about to make the final call, she suddenly stood up. Oh, sir, do you still want to raise the price? I don't have any spiritual stones. She shook his head, which immediately caused the auction house to burst into laughter. This is more refreshing than what I told you to pretend. You don't have any spiritual stones. Are you planning to sell your kidney, or what? Look at you. You're such a hypocrite. I reckon your kidneys aren't worth much. Sir, if you continue to disturb the order of the gathered cloud pavilion, I can only send someone to ask you to leave. A cold look flashed across the charming woman's eyes. It was fine that Ling Xiao provoked the gathered cloud pavilion. After all, he was the successor of the Ling people, the young master of the Devil sect, and the son-in-law of the Dao Palace. But who do you think you are? You don't have any spiritual stones. How dare you ask me to wait for you to borrow them? Hee, I don't have any spiritual stones. She shook his head and laughed coldly in his heart. It's not time yet. The atmosphere hasn't reached its peak yet. But this guy really thinks he's Lord Ling Xiao. How dare he act so presumptuously here? He probably won't be able to walk out of the gathered cloud pavilion today. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Do you think you're worthy of being pretentious here? He probably thinks he'll get special treatment after spending 100,000 spiritual stones just now. Are you kidding me? My second senior brother spent millions in the gathered cloud pavilion for 10 years. A few days ago, he acted presumptuously at the auction house. In the end, he was carried back to the sect with his face swollen like a pig's head. What did your second senior brother act like? He saw the leader's daughter at the gathered cloud pavilion and whistled at her. Your second senior brother has always been a steady person. I didn't expect him to act so arrogantly. All the heavens' favorites mocked and looked at she as if they were looking at an idiot. Guards, drag this reckless fool out of here. On the high platform, the charming woman could no longer suppress her anger and shouted coldly. It's here. This is the atmosphere. All of you, open your eyes and watch carefully. Wait, I have. Forget it. I like this stone very much. 10,000 spiritual stones is too shabby. I'll pay 100,000 spiritual stones. However, just as she was about to take out the only 5th grade pill in his hand and ruthlessly slap the faces of everyone present, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his mouth and spoke indifferently. 100,000 spiritual stones. Damn, a 5th grade medicinal pill was only worth 70,000 spiritual stones. Is this Ling Xiao crazy? Regardless of whether he's crazy or not, she is crazy right now. Chapter 131. Ling Xiao, I think you're deliberately targeting me. She turned his head and glared at Ling Xiao. Why is this guy always going against me? And why does he seem to be able to see through my thoughts every time? 100,000 spirit stones. Apart from the 9-dragon cauldron, I don't have that many spirit stones. But if I sell the 9-dragon cauldron back to the gathered cloud pavilion for 100,000 spirit stones, I'm afraid I'll be beaten to death on the spot. She swallowed his saliva and looked up to see the 2 divine generals in front of him. Gulp, everyone listen to me. Actually, I want to congratulate Lord Ling Xiao. She looked as if he had just eaten shit. He turned to look at Ling Xiao and forced out a smile. Congratulations to the young lord for obtaining such a precious treasure. I recognize this treasure. It's a type of soul skill. Oh, Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. Even at this point in time, he still wanted to scam him. Since I can't get it, I won't let you get it so easily. At this moment, although she was congratulating Ling Xiao, he had also unknowingly revealed the origin of this black round stone. A soul skill. Just these 4 words were enough to attract the covetous eyes of countless strong people. After all, soul skills have been lost for a long time. Every time they appeared, countless sects would fight for them. The gathered cloud pavilion took out this item because they didn't know what it was used for. But she knew. Once he revealed that it was a soul elder's soul skill, This small black stone would become a hard and hot stone. Whoever held it would be targeted by others. Furthermore, the gathered cloud pavilion would definitely feel remorseful. Killing two birds with one stone. Who said that I, Lin Shi, was the son of destiny who lower my intelligence? Soul skill. Sure enough, after hearing Lin Shi's words, the entire auction house was filled with gasps. As everyone knew, soul skills were unpredictable and could kill people without leaving a trace. Once he grasped a soul skill, even if it was of the lowest quality, he would undoubtedly have another lethal trump card when he fought with others. In particular, there were very few people in the Shengzhou who cultivated their spirit. Everyone only knew that soul skills had been passed down since ancient times, but they had never seen one before, so how could they resist? At this moment, the charming woman on the high platform also had a look of surprise on her face. She stared at Ling Xiao with her beautiful eyes, clearly weighing the pros and cons of a soul skill against offending the Ling people. Haha, even the God Kings and God Emperors of the Gather Cloud Pavilion couldn't tell that there was a soul skill hidden in this black stone. How did you see it? Could it be that you have a similar stone with you? Ling Xiao didn't show a trace of nervousness from beginning to end. So what if it was a soul skill? So what if they knew? Could it be that there was someone in Sunset City who dared to have designs on him? Even if they left Setting Sun City, how many people in the entire Shenzhou would dare to make an enemy out of Ling Xiao? Lin Shi, oh Lin Shi, you really are my naive little cutie. Your head is full of innocence. I didn't. Lin Shi instantly panicked. He just wanted to trick Ling Xiao, but he didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, this guy would draw the hatred himself. Compared to Ling Xiao, he looked like a pushover no matter how one looked at him. Although there were many ancient sect prodigies in the Gathered Cloud Pavilion, their status was far inferior to Ling Xiao's. Even if they coveted the fortune on him, they wouldn't dare gamble with their lives. Besides, what kind of fortune on Ling Xiao's body wasn't coveted? But wasn't he still alive and well? Feeling the greed in the eyes of the people around him, Lin Shi's legs trembled, and he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Damn, I was too careless. You didn't? Then aren't you insulting the elders of the Gathered Cloud Pavilion? Ling Xiao sneered, and the charming woman on the high platform no longer hesitated. With a wave of her hand, she suddenly roared, "Capture him!" What a joke! Who cares if you have it or not? I'll search your soul first. A mere Xianxing ant with no reputation in the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent, so the Gathered Cloud Pavilion naturally didn't feel the slightest pressure to kill him. Of course, Lin Shi knew what would happen if he fell into the hands of the Gathered Cloud Pavilion. He glared fiercely at Ling Xiao, and a spirit talisman suddenly appeared in his hand. The spirit force around him suddenly shone brightly, and his figure instantly disappeared on the spot. Lin Shi was filled with regret. That day, when he went alone to provoke Ling people, he didn't use this trump card. He didn't expect that today, in this small auction house, he would use up one of his teleportation opportunities. One must know that he only had a total of 3 of these space talismans. He had already used one in a mystic realm. If that was the case, he only had one chance to escape. Looking at the figure that disappeared in an instant, the entire auction house fell into silence. Clearly, many people didn't expect that an ordinary-looking young man with no reputation would have such a trump card. However, it seemed that this kid really did have some heaven-defying fortune hidden on him. Lord Ling Xiao, your treasure. The charming woman personally held the spirit stone and walked in front of Ling Xiao. The successor of the Ling people must have noticed her hesitation just now. If she didn't act more attentive now, she was afraid that she would attract unnecessary trouble to the Gathered Cloud Pavilion. Okay, Ling Xiao nodded. His gaze was provocative as he glanced at the crowd before turning around and leaving in a carefree manner. He could sense that Lin Shi's presence hadn't gone far. At this point, no matter how big the risk was, it was time for the treasure-hunting beast to take action. Lord Ling Xiao. But just as Ling Xiao walked out of the Gathered Cloud Pavilion, a timid girl's voice suddenly sounded from behind him. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Sure enough, Lin Ming followed him out. Miss Lin Ming, Is something the matter? No. I just want to say goodbye to you. Senior brother and I are going back to the Fire Cloud sect today. Lin Ming's face was red, and she looked a little helpless. With her status, she didn't deserve to appear in front of Lord Ling Xiao. Now that the two of them had a chance to talk face to face, they were still relying on him to spend money. Oh, so anxious? Aren't you going to look for the ruins in the Sunset Mountain? Maybe you'll find something? Damn, if you don't go to the Sunset Mountain, how can I secretly kill Yin Tianxing and capture you? We're not going. Senior brother said that the fortune in the mountain is not fated to be with us. You and the goddess are both here, so it's not anyone else's turn to think about it. Lin Ming shook her head, and a trace of reluctance flashed in her eyes. After today, she probably wouldn't have the chance to meet Lord Ling Xiao again. Before coming to the Sunset Mountain, Lin Ming's biggest dream was to break through to the profound clear realm and become a true disciple of the Fire Cloud sect, like Senior Brother Yin. However, after seeing Ling Xiao, she realized that this world was actually so prosperous and beautiful. There really was a perfect and peerless young master like Lord Ling Xiao. Compared to this, Senior Martial Brother Yin suddenly didn't seem so attractive. Chapter 132. Oh, since you've made up your mind, then we'll meet again someday. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. This girl before him clearly looked like she was inexperienced in the ways of the world. To put it simply, she was easy to fool. He was not in a hurry to subdue her. Otherwise, people would scold him for being a pervert. Moreover, the most important thing now was to deal with Lin Shi and Yin Qingyan. Today at the auction house, the system's voice in his mind had not stopped. Both Yin Qingyan and Lin Shi had contributed a lot of luck points to him. As for the next step, of course, he had to strike while the iron was hot and completely get rid of Lin Shi. Moreover, if Ling Xiao guessed correctly, the old man in Lin Shi's body should not only be a strong cultivator, but also an alchemist. If he could capture him and lock him in the 8 Desolation glazed pagoda to make pills for him day and night. It was true that Ling Xiao did not have much need for pills, but the people around him still relied on pills to cultivate. It would be a little difficult for him to fight against the saint alone. But if he formed a girl group and rode the wind in waves, the luck points alone would be enough to make the hypocrites of the saint panic. As for the harem, you can slap yourself and ask yourself, which one do you want among the 30 girls? Only children would make such choices. No matter who you want, I want all of them except Jing Jing. After all, there are too many people who want Jing Jing, and I don't deserve it. See you again someday? Lin Ming's pretty face froze. Young master said, see you again someday? The originally ordinary and even somewhat polite words were like the sound of nature in the girl's ears. She was originally a small disciple of a small sect in the mountains of the Shenzhou eastern border. What did she do to deserve Lord Ling Xiao's attention? Young master said that I looked like his mother when she was young. What an honor this was. Young master, see you again someday. Lin Ming only regained her senses after Ling Xiao had walked far away. She shouted at the top of her lungs. Ling Xiao did not speak or turn around. He just raised his hand and waved gently. Gently, I left, always pretending to be comfortable. Junior sister, didn't you go to the bathroom? Why are you here? Yin Tianxing's voice came from behind. Lin Ming's expectant face immediately calmed down. She turned around and smiled sweetly at Yin Tianxing. Brother, thank you so much for bringing me out to broaden my horizons. Haha, junior sister, this is what I should do. Actually, I have something I want to discuss with you. Yin Tianxing's face turned solemn, and an aura surged out of his body. Senior brother, what's the matter? You and I are childhood sweethearts. This is no longer a secret in the Fire Cloud sect. When I return to the sect this time, I plan to ask grandfather to go to the Lin family to propose marriage. Yin Tianxing smiled faintly, but the desire in his eyes was not concealed at all. He proposed marriage? Lin Ming was stunned. If it were before, she wouldn't have hesitated. After all, with Yin Tianxing's status, he would most likely become an elder of the Fire Cloud sect in the future. As for her Lin family, it was just a small family at the foot of the Fire Cloud sect. It was all thanks to Yin Tianxing's favor that he was able to climb up the ladder of the Fire Cloud sect. But for some reason, Lin Ming felt a little lost. It was as if the small Fire Cloud sect could no longer satisfy her desire to become an immortal. Junior sister, you don't want to? Yin Tianxing's face darkened, and a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. It shouldn't be. With his status, he was more than enough for a girl from a small family like her. Although the Yin family could not be compared to the ancient families and sacred sects, it was still somewhat famous in the Fire Cloud sect. If Lin Ming did not know what was good for her, humph. Senior brother, I want to become a core disciple first, then consider marriage, Lin Ming sighed. She did not have the courage to offend Yin Tianxing. After all, Ling Xiao was just an accident in her life. But how could a person who had just met a real dragon be willing to follow a toy poodle? Core disciple? That's easy. When we return to the sect, I will ask grandfather to accept you as a core disciple. Take it as a betrothal gift from the Yin family. Yin Tianxing sneered and looked at Lin Ming with a cold gaze. Junior sister, don't forget that the Lin family was just a third-rate family in the Fire Cloud City. If it wasn't for the support of the Yin family, the old city lord would have kidnapped you and made you his concubine. Lin Ming will never forget senior brother's kindness, Lin Ming sighed. Maybe it was all her wishful thinking. Boom! Suddenly, a cloud shot into the sky from the sacred mountain. Thunder rumbled, and the sky collapsed. The Xinjian flame had a shocking change. A dazzling red light shrouded the entire sky, and a strange wave of scorching heat spread out silently. At this moment, in the setting sun ancient city, all the young experts' eyes flashed with shock and desire. It was born. 2 days later, the treasure had finally reappeared in the world. But this wave of energy, hesitation flashed across the faces of some of the geniuses from the ancient sects with lower cultivation levels. At this moment, they felt an indescribable heat rising from the bottom of their hearts. It's finally born. Ling Xiao stopped and looked up at the strange phenomenon in the sky. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. A heaven and earth spirit fire. But he didn't know what rank this spirit fire was on the Heaven Secret Pavilion spirit fire list. Master Ling Xiao, Fu Yinyao, and the others' voices came from behind. Ling Xiao turned around and smiled at them. Let's go. Boom. For a moment, the sky above the setting sun city was filled with the sound of wind breaking. Figures turned into divine rainbows and flew toward the depths of the setting sun mountain. Faced with such a great opportunity, it was hard to resist the desire in their hearts. Of course, most people weren't going for the treasure. Ling Xiao, Nian Qingyun, and even those from the cloudy immortal sect were insurmountable mountains for the geniuses of the small sects and clans. That treasure was most likely going to fall into their hands. This was especially so for Ling Xiao. His reputation had been flourishing these past few days, and he was in a favorable position. Even if someone were to snatch the treasure, they might not be able to slip away under his nose. However, the appearance of such a spiritual treasure of heaven and earth must contain some other good fortune. If they couldn't eat meat, they could drink some soup. Young master, Fu Yinyao saw that Nian Qingyun wasn't by Ling Xiao's side, and a smile appeared on her face. But this precious treasure has already appeared in the world. Why is young master still taking his time? There's no hurry. This opportunity isn't something that anyone can snatch. Wasn't that obvious? Lin she had appeared in the setting sun city, and the spirit fire had appeared there. Could the heavenly Tao's protection be more obvious? If Lin she hadn't come, the spirit fire wouldn't have been taken away so easily. It was just like how Yi Fan had discovered the ancient ruins in the northern wilderness. He was a villain. No matter how many tricks he had, he didn't dare to be careless. The safest way was to let Lin she lead the way and sweep away all obstacles. In the end, he would transform into a scythe and slash lightly. Sigh. He had succeeded and retreated. Of course, Fu Yinyao definitely didn't understand this logic. Ling Xiao couldn't be bothered to explain. God's perspective? Wasn't it nonsense to let a bunch of mortals who worshipped immortals understand the word God? However, Just as Ling Xiao was leisurely walking forward, his eyes quietly narrowed. That's not right. Why did Lin Shi's aura go elsewhere? Chapter 133. Senior Sister Fu, wait for me at the location of the treasure. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment and was about to rush towards the distant mountains. Young master, please wait. But at this moment, an old voice came from the side of the street. Ling Xiao frowned and turned to look. He saw the old fortune teller he met in Cold Sky City looking at him with a half-smile. For a moment, Ling Xiao felt a trace of unease in his heart. That day, he looked for this old Taoist to tell his fortune, to teach Ling Tian a lesson and make him think that he didn't want to kill him. But he didn't expect to meet this old Taoist again in Setting Sun City. Coincidence? Or was this old Taoist following him? But how could an ant who was only in the mystic clear stage have the guts to follow him? Also, with Ling Xiao's divine sense, how could he not feel that he was being followed? Coincidence? Or did he really see through his secret? According to the rumors, people like Tianji priests couldn't be killed. Otherwise, they would be punished by the heavens. Ling Xiao didn't believe this. After all, these rumors could be spread by these Tianji priests. He even killed the destined person. Why would he be afraid of the heavens? If this old Taoist really had evil intentions, this day next year would be his death anniversary. You again? Ling Xiao lifted his foot and walked towards the old Taoist. Haha, young master, what a coincidence. We meet again. The old Taoist nodded with a smile. There was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. Why did you call me? Ling Xiao stood in front of the old Taoist with a playful smile. That day in Cold Sky City, this old Taoist didn't show any respect to him, the successor of the Ling people. Could it be that this old man had some background? Or could it be that his cultivation was far beyond a divine king and his aura was just a pretense? But no matter which it was, Ling Xiao felt an inexplicable pressure. Usually, people who appeared out of nowhere were not simple, especially fortune tellers. They were not to be trifled with. I see that young master's glabella is a little dark. I'm afraid there will be a disaster on this trip. The old Taoist priest laughed bitterly. His expression did not seem to be fake. Oh, is there a way to break it? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. There would be a disaster? Wasn't that right? Plotting to obtain the fortune of the Son of Destiny was a disaster in itself. Since ancient times, how could a villain survive to the end? No matter how powerful a villain's background was, didn't they still become a stepping stone for the chosen one? But was Ling Xiao afraid? Of course he was afraid. Otherwise, why would he plunder the fortunes of the children of destiny bit by bit before killing them? It's not that there isn't a way to break it, but the old Taoist priest twisted his fingers and a hint of greed flashed across his old eyes. Hee, looks like you've forgotten that I don't believe in fate. Ling Xiao sneered. Suddenly, a wave of devil chi rose from his body. The old Taoist was so shocked that his face changed and he fell to the ground. Could it be that this old Taoist was only greedy for money? Young master, please spare me. If I were to meet you again, Ling Xiao grinned, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. The first time they met was a coincidence. The second time was fate. If there was a third time, there was definitely something wrong with this old Taoist priest. However, Ling Xiao did not feel a trace of an expert's aura from him. Moreover, the old Taoist priest's reaction just now was real enough. Most importantly, Lin Shi's aura was gradually fading away. It was not difficult for Ling Xiao to kill a Xianqing person. However, if he missed out on Lin Shi's fortune because of this, it would not be worth it. The spirit fire appeared, but Lin Shi went somewhere else. There was something fishy. There was definitely something fishy. It was only when Ling Xiao's figure was far away that the old Taoist priest got up from the ground. There was no longer any trace of fear and uneasiness on his old face. Lightning Dao Law, Sword Dao Law. I just don't know if you can successfully reach the Archgod realm. No, Divine King will do. At the same time, deep in the Sunset God Mountain, Lin Shi had already removed his disguise and revealed his true appearance. He stood carefully at the top of an ancient tree. Today, he was completely famous in the Sunset City. He had competed with Ling Xiao for a treasure, was extremely wealthy, and even had a soul skill. If he showed his previous appearance, he would be in someone else's hands before he could obtain the spirit fire. Damn Ling Xiao. Just you wait. Wait until I merge with the undying heart flame and comprehend the fire Tao law. See how I'll crush you then. So what if the soul sword is in your hands? Even if you die, won't your fortune still be mine? Of course, there was also the woman. Although Nian Xingyun's behavior was a little strange today, Lin Shi had no choice but to forgive her. After all, in the entire Shenzhou eastern border, the only person who was worthy of him was the goddess of the Tao Palace. Elderling, are you sure the spirit fruit of Tao is in the mountain stream below? Lin Shi frowned. He had no way of resisting a peak divine overlord great demon. If not for the fact that the fortune Elderling had promised him was too tempting, he wouldn't have taken the risk. Don't worry, Shi'er. I can feel that the spirit fruit is about to ripen. Elderling's voice was a little excited. Of course, how could he not be excited? Ever since he followed Lin Shi, he had endured hardships and poisons. He had given all kinds of spiritual herbs and elixirs to his disciple. But the spirit fruit of Tao was different. It was infinitely beneficial to his spirit. As long as he could merge with it, he would be able to manifest his spirit and leave this broken ring. Although he didn't have a physical body now, his spirit was not something a divine king or divine general could contend against. Especially if Lin Shi wanted to go to the Tian Yuan mystery realm to search for the immemorial Emperor Flame. It was impossible for him to do it alone. What Elderling needed to do was to protect his disciple. Okay, Elderling, we will act according to plan. You go to the armored lion and lure the fire wolf away. I will take the opportunity to seize the spirit fruit. Lin Shi had already discussed it with Elderling. Given his cultivation level, he would be crushed to pieces by the fire wolf once he showed himself. Although Elderling's strength was not there, his pressure was still there. After putting the ring on the armored lion, Elderling released his aura to attract the fire wolf's attention. As long as he left the mountain stream, Lin Shi would seize the opportunity to seize the spirit fruit. Moreover, given the fire wolf's vigilance, it would not chase too far. This way, Elderling would not be in too much danger. As long as he seized the spirit fruit, Lin Shi would immediately rush to the place where the spirit fire appeared. At that time, there would be so many people. No matter how angry the fire wolf was, it would not dare to kill everyone. Moreover, a divine marquis was not as noble as the true disciples of the ancient sections. If it dared to attack everyone, it would soon have no place in the Shenzhou. He had to swallow this grievance even if he couldn't. Of course, if the opportunity was right, Lin Shi might even put the blame on Ling Xiao. At that time, even if the Ling people had a terrifying foundation, the fire wolf must be very stubborn since it could endure staying in this barren mountain for so many years. Being targeted by a divine marquis, the successor of the Ling people would not have an easy time. Oh, so that's how it is. It was just that Lin Shi would never have dreamed that at this time, above his head, a figure in white was hidden between the ancient trees, nodding with a serious face, revealing a thoughtful expression. Chapter 134. The Imperial Star Robe was the inherited Tao artifact of the Ling people. It wasn't just because of the starlight it contained. No, it wasn't just because of its terrifying defensive power. The most important thing was that it could completely conceal the aura of the owner of the robe. Even though Elderling was a supremacy when he was alive, his physical body was shattered and his soul was damaged. Although his senses were comparable to a god emperor's, he was not omnipotent. Of course, to be safe, Ling Xiao still exchanged for a 5th-grade talisman that could conceal aura from the system store and carried it with him. At this moment, he was standing in the dark, looking at the master and disciple beneath him with a playful look in his eyes. As expected, the children of destiny were not good people. They had nothing to do every day and only thought about how to snatch other people's fortune. If you want to snatch it, so be it. After snatching it, they didn't forget to say that since they were on the path of immortality, they had to compete with the heavens, with the earth, and with people. The children of destiny did this to comply with the heavenly Tao. It was only right. If a villain did this, they would say, F asterisk CK, so cruel, so sinister. All right, you snatch it first, then I'll snatch it from you. That's fine, right? Ling Xiao smiled sinisterly. Below him, Lin Shi had already taken out a black puppet from his chinkoan bag and put the ring on its palm. For a moment, Ling Xiao thought about snatching the ring directly. But looking at Lin Shi's current realm, he had probably established a deep relationship with the old man in the ring. Moreover, Lin Shi would probably have to rely on him to find the spiritual fire. It was not appropriate to snatch it now. After all, even if Ling Xiao snatched 1,000 luck, Lin Shi still had 1,000 on him. Elder Ling, it's up to you. Lin Shi took a deep breath, and the black-armored puppet immediately rushed out of the forest and toward the mountain stream. Boom! At the same time, a terrifying wave of divine Lord Realm fluctuations surged out. Under the mountain stream, an angry roar instantly came. Monstrous flames filled the sky, and the black-armored puppet did not hesitate at all. It turned around and was about to leave. Want to leave? It's too late. The flames in the sky dispersed and turned into the shape of a wolf. You dare to kill me? I'm a Ling people. To Ling Xiao's surprise, the black-armored puppet suddenly let out a furious roar and frantically fled into the distance. Ling people. Hualang hesitated for a moment. In the end, killing intent flashed in his eyes as he chased after the black figure. Since he was a member of the Ling clan, if he let him escape, his purpose of hiding here would be exposed. Even if he merged with the Tao Law Spirit Fruit in the end, he would not be able to escape from the Ling people. If that was the case, why not go all the way? How dare a deity overlord act so arrogantly in front of him? Oh, Xiao. Ling Xiao looked at the two figures that disappeared into the distance in an instant and immediately grinned. He guessed the sinister intentions of this dog master and disciple. It had to be said that Lin Shi's plan was very thorough. First, he released a trace of deity overlord aura and successfully attracted the firewolf's attention. Then, he revealed the identity of the Ling people and made the firewolf really want to kill him. Otherwise, if Tai Mu escaped, the next Ling people to come might be a King Realm cultivator. Lin Shi took the opportunity to steal the Tao Law Spirit Fruit and put all the blame on the Ling people. This dog master and disciple pair were indeed people of destiny. They were quite good at using a borrowed knife to kill someone. Currently, Ling Xiao was the only Ling people in the entire Sunset Mountain. Even if the firewolf came to Ling Xiao in the end, it would not dare to act recklessly. It could only grit its teeth and swallow its anger. Moreover, this kind of thing was not honorable. No one would take the initiative to admit it. This way, the master and disciple's plan would be complete. However, no matter how much Lin Shi calculated, he never expected that Ling Xiao would leave his spiritual soul imprint on him. At this moment, it was right above his head. This dog master and disciple pair are so scheming. It seems that the things in this valley are not ordinary. Tao, Law Spirit Fruit? Now is the time. Seeing the firewolf leave, a smile appeared on Lin Shi's face. He no longer hesitated and was about to rush toward the mountain stream. But also at this moment, he clearly felt a black shadow looming over his head. Then it felt as if a foot was stepping on his head, kicking him to the ground. The figure borrowed the force and fell into the mountain stream. Damn it, there's someone here. Lin Shi's eyes widened in anger, but that kick was so powerful that even with his cultivation, he couldn't react in time and fell to the ground. There's a formation? Ling Xiao fell into the mountain stream and looked at a small red tree and the Tao Law Spirit Fruit on it. A look of surprise flashed across his face. The Tao Law Spirit Fruit was shining with a strange light. There seemed to be a spirit mist around it. When he got closer, he could hear the sound of the great path. Suddenly, the spirit mist around the Tao Law Spirit Fruit slowly rose and disappeared into the Tao Law Spirit Fruit. At the same time, a strange fragrance quietly spread out. Good stuff. It seems that Lin Shi and his disciple have calculated the ripening time of the Dao Lost Spirit Fruit. Ling Xiao grinned and reached out to grab the Dao Lost Spirit Fruit. In this world, there is no formation that could stop the power of the barrier-breaking stone. Especially a divine, overlord demonic beast, the formation was even more clumsy. However, just as Ling Xiao held the Dao Lost Spirit Fruit in his hand, a furious roar suddenly came from the forest in the distance. Who? Who dares to steal my fortune? A terrifying gust of wind came from the sky. Ling Xiao grinned and turned to look at another angry figure above the mountain stream. Without hesitation, he rushed toward the place where the Dao Lost Spirit Fire appeared. Who? Who dares to steal from me? Lin Shi's anger was not any weaker than the Firewolf's. After all, this Dao Lost Spirit Fruit meant that he would have another venerable realm follower by his side. Moreover, he and Elder Ling had been planning this for a long time. Now that it was taken away right in front of his eyes, how could he describe how aggrieved he felt? However, before he could fall into the mountain stream, he saw a white figure rushing out and fleeing into the distance. Damn bastard. Let's see where you can run to. Lin Shi gritted his teeth and chased after Ling Xiao. However, at this moment, a trace of doubt faintly flashed through his eyes. Why does this figure look somewhat familiar? Roar! In the depths of the Sunset Mountain, a demonic aura suddenly spread out. The divine overlord Firewolf looked at the empty Dao Law Spirit Tree in the mountain stream, and flames rose in his eyes. He sniffed the air and then chased in a direction. This Dao Law Spirit Fruit's aura is a little unique. Ling Xiao flitted through the forest. At this moment, how could he not feel the aura chasing after him? His eyes were filled with playfulness. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the distance. Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky and walked toward Fu Yunyao and the others. Young master, you're here? Fu Yunyao smiled sweetly, then glanced to the side with a bitter expression. Ling Xiao followed her gaze and saw Yin Qingyun standing alone outside the crowd. There was not a single person within 100 feet of her. At this moment, her eyes had returned to their usual calmness and indifference. Even when Ling Xiao arrived, she didn't give him a second glance. It seems that our goddess has a very strong Dao heart. Ling Xiao sneered and turned to look at the sky behind him. He saw Lin Shi's figure flash over. After a moment of hesitation, he walked toward Yin Qingyun. Chapter 135. Did you say that someone stole the spirit fruit before you? Within the ring, Elder Ling's voice clearly carried a trace of doubt. He had been waiting at the agreed location with Lin Shi for a long time, but the good news he had been waiting for was not what he wanted. If not for the fact that Lin Shi did not have the aura of the spirit fruit of Dao, he would have attacked him. F***CK. Are you kidding me? Just as you were about to snatch the spirit fruit, someone else beat you to it? How is that possible? My spirit perception is at the venerable stage, but I didn't sense the aura of a living person beside the mountain stream. Is a person who beat me to it a saint stage expert? F***CK. I want this spirit fruit of Dao because my physical body is broken and I have no choice but to do so. Otherwise, why would I care about such a thing before? Besides, if someone could really avoid my spirit perception, why wait for the Firewolf to leave to steal the spirit fruit? Wouldn't it be better to just slap him to death? Elder Ling thought for a long time. In the end, he still suspected that Lin Shi must have secretly hidden the fruit somewhere else. Otherwise, it would not make sense. But it was obviously not appropriate to fall out with him now. After all, he was still counting on Lin Shi to help him rebuild his physical body. If they fell out because of the fruit, Lin Shi could sell his spirit to the experts of the Shengzhou continent at any time. The spirit of a Dao Venerable was a great supplement for any expert. Besides, there were some old perverts in this world who were good at capturing and controlling souls. If he fell into the hands of others, his fate would be even more miserable. Elderling, I suspect that the person who stole the spirit fruit is Ling Xiao. Don't worry, let me ask Qingyun first. Lin Shi took a deep breath and pretended to be calm as he walked in front of Yin Qingyun. He believed that with Yin Qingyun here, Ling Xiao would never do anything to him. Otherwise, the successor of the Ling people would seem too narrow-minded. Besides, if he dared to kill him in front of Nian Qingyan, he would have done it back at the Ling people. He would never choose to do it here. However, he probably couldn't understand why Ling Xiao would not dare to kill him. If not for the fact that he still had some luck left, Ling Xiao could crush him with a wave of his hand. As for Nian Qingyan, haha, in the eyes of the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace, even Ling Xia was probably more righteous than he was. Qingyan, you're here too? Lin Shi looked at the fairy-like face in front of him, and a look of infatuation appeared in his eyes. She should have been his true love, but unfortunately, he was born lowly and was not worthy of this 9 heavenly phoenix. Therefore, he had always been working hard, tempering himself between life and death, constantly breaking through to the next level and crushing all the obstacles in front of him. Be it the young master of Glory sect or the demonic being of the ancient race, none of them were worth mentioning in Lin Shi's eyes. They were just born with a silver spoon in their mouths. But how could those geniuses who were held in the palm of others be compared to him? Every step was extremely difficult for Lin Shi. However, at the same time, every step he took was extremely steady. In Lin Shi's opinion, if Ling Xiao had not comprehended the Tao law, this successor of the Ling people would not be a match for him at all. What right did he have to possess Nian Qingyan? Just you wait. One day I will stand at the top of the Shengzhou continent and look down on you nobles. What's the matter? Nian Qingyun's absolute coldness did not discriminate between people. But at this moment, Lin Shi still felt a trace of heartache. In the past, although she also had such a cold appearance, she would at least look at him. But now, Nian Qingyun's gaze fell on the divine light in the mountain, and she did not look at him at all. I'm fine. Did you see when Sir Ling Xiao arrived? Never. What a joke. At this moment, Nian Qingyun felt annoyed whenever she heard the words Ling Xiao, but this idiot still wanted to mention it. Oh, Lin Shi was a little disappointed. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Ling Xiao walk over from the side. Haha, so it's Brother Lin. Ling Xiao had a gentle smile on his face, and he had the demeanor of a noble family's young master. Ling Xiao, sir. Lin Shi gritted his teeth and forced a smile. No matter how conceited he was, he knew that he was not Ling Xiao's match at the moment. Now that the undying heart flame was about to be born, he would not allow any more accidents to happen. As long as he could obtain this spiritual fire, he would almost be able to enter the Pang state. Then, he would be able to comprehend the power of law easily. Ha! Since we parted that day, it has been a day. Brother Lin, how have you been? Ling Xiao shook his head regretfully, as if he did not see Lin Shi as an enemy at all. Instead, he was like an old friend who appreciated each other. Nian Qingyun, the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace, trembled when she saw this. Originally, she had thought that given Ling Xiao's temper, he would most likely kill Lin Shi. At the very least, he would see him as an enemy. After all, on the day of their engagement, Lin Shi had come to provoke him, which was undoubtedly a kind of humiliation. Although he had humiliated her in the end, Ling Xiao's bad reputation. But now, looking at the appearance of this successor of the Ling people, he was generous, gentle, and magnanimous. Lin Shi, on the other hand, had a fake smile on his face, which was really disgusting. Nian Qingyun felt a surge of anger rising from the bottom of her heart when she thought of the first time he had said that day. Boom! Just as the three of them were pondering and lowering their heads in silence, a demonic aura suddenly spread out from the forest in the distance. A terrifying divine lord's aura spread out for thousands of miles, almost enveloping the entire Sunset Mountain. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Ling Xiao, then turned and walked away. He was not sure whether the spiritual fruit had been taken by Ling Xiao or not. But it was obvious that the demonic beast was certain that the Ling people were the culprits. It was hard to say whether he dared to kill Ling Xiao, but he was too close to the latter at this moment, and it was still dangerous. What a terrifying demonic aura! Where the divine light shot into the sky, the faces of many disciples of the ancient clans instantly turned pale. They looked up at the terrifying demonic figure that was coming from afar, and there was a trace of indescribable shock in their eyes. Even though the Divine Lord realm was not considered the strongest in most of the ancient clans and sections. But this time, most of the disciples who came to the Sunset Mountain were of the younger generation. The strongest among them was only a Pawang cultivator. How could they fight against the Divine Lord realm demon? Damn it! Is this demonic beast crazy? How dare he come here? Who is it? Who the hell stole my spirit fruit? Firewolf took a step forward and appeared above everyone's heads. His eyes were burning with anger. It was obvious that he was on the verge of losing his mind. Be careful. Ling Xiao raised his foot and stood in front of Nian Xingyun. This simple action made Nian Xingyun's heart skip a beat. She then looked at Lin Shi, who was hiding somewhere. Haha, she had a bad eye for people. Beep. The destined daughter is hostile. Congratulations to the host for stealing 300 luck points from the destined child and 3,000 villain points. Hearing the system notification in his head, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a playful smile. Sure enough, the coldness on Nian Xingyun's face was all an act. Haha, keep pretending. Let's see how long you can keep it up. Speak. Who just came here? Hualang waved his hand and grabbed a disciple from a small sect. He roared angrily. How dare you? I don't know, Poochie. Blood rained down from the sky, and many disciples' legs turned to jelly. They almost fell to the ground. Damn it, I haven't even seen the fortune yet, and now I'm being targeted by a demonic beast? However, according to what he said just now, did someone steal his spirit fruit? F*CK. Which son of a B** TCH was it that caused such a disaster? Chapter 136. Tell me. Hualang's roar shook the sky. His face was ferocious and terrifying. He grabbed another disciple from the ground, and the ferocious look in his eyes scared him unconscious. Trash. Tell me, who just came here? Hualang had followed the aura in the mountain stream all the way here. He did not expect that there would be so many sect disciples here. Of course, how could he not see the divine light in Sunset Mountain? However, this was the Ling people's territory. If he dared to touch it, he would definitely die. Therefore, Hualang had only wanted to leave this place after obtaining the spiritual fruit of Tao. Who would have thought that after waiting for 5 years, the fruit would be stolen just as it was about to ripen? His gaze slowly swept across the crowd and finally stopped on Ling Xiao. Damn, there really was someone from the Ling people here, and he was the descendant of the Ling people. However, even if he had really stolen the fruit, he would not dare to act rashly. However, if he left just like that, the anger in his heart would not be quelled. If you don't tell me, I will kill all of you hypocritical humans. Boom! A terrifying demonic flame descended from the sky, instantly burning a few sect disciples to ashes. However, Hualang was not stupid. He killed the disciples of the small sects to vent the anger in his heart. Otherwise, if he provoked someone he should not provoke, there would be no place for him in the vast Eastern Territory. Damn it, which bastard stole this fierce demon's spirit fruit? I don't know. Damn it, if I find out, I will definitely kill him. What a sin. He has implicated us and killed us. Damn it, you dare to steal it, but don't dare to admit it? If you have the ability, you should take responsibility for what you did. Countless angry curses resounded in the air. Many sect disciples had already used all their strength to escape into the distant forest. However, before those people could escape very far, they were captured by the fire wolf and torn to shreds in front of everyone's eyes. Lin Shi hid behind the crowd, his eyes full of thoughts. If he stood out now and identified Ling Xiao, would it be too obvious? He should wait a little longer. However, at this moment, the fire wolf's gaze suddenly landed on him. Damn it! Lin Shi's legs trembled as he gritted his teeth. Regardless of whether it was Ling Xiao or not, Hualang would not dare to attack the successor of the Ling people. When the time came, he would naturally retreat. As for Ling Xiao, in any case, he had already offended him thoroughly. It wouldn't be a big deal to offend him again. The enmity of stealing his wife was absolutely irreconcilable. Hmm. Looks like that fire wolf wants to attack Brother Lin. Oh, wasn't he the last one to arrive here? Ling Xiao suddenly sighed and looked at Nian Qingyun with a solemn expression. Whether you admit it or not, you are now my fiancé. Since he saved your life, I will return the favor. With that, Ling Xiao suddenly lifted his foot and walked towards the fire wolf. Look, it's Ling people's Gongzi Ling Xiao. What is he trying to do? Did he steal the spirit fruit? Are you an idiot? Why would young Master Ling Xiao need to steal something he wants? Why would he care about a mere divine, overlord demonic beast? That's true. Then Gongzi's action. He's protecting us. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they stared at the young man who was walking in the air with a calm expression on his face. Gongzi is unparalleled. He deserves to be favored by the goddess and become invincible. At that moment, Nian Qingyun's beautiful eyes revealed a complicated look. Is he returning the favor for me? Only Lin Shi's eyes darkened when he heard the exclamations of the crowd. Damn it, this disaster was most likely caused by Ling Xiao. Why is he still respected? Why? Stop. Ling Xiao walked in front of Huolang and whispered, So it's Lord Ling Xiao. Huolang gritted his teeth and said in a sinister tone. However, in front of the Ling people, he was nothing. Naturally, he did not dare to show any disrespect to Ling Xiao. A divine overlord has bowed down. Is this the so-called unparalleled heavenly power? Lord Ling Xiao. He is indeed the #1 heaven's favorite of the eastern border. What heaven's favorite? Is heaven's favorite used to describe Gongzi? Ignorant. This is called unparalleled immortal beauty. Everyone looked up at the handsome figure in white robes floating in the air. Their faces were filled with yearning and reverence. Putting aside the rumors about this Ling people's Gongzi in the past, his actions right now were undoubtedly chivalrous and righteous. If you leave now, I can pretend that I didn't see anything. Otherwise, do you know the consequences of killing someone in front of my Ling people? Ling Xiao said calmly. Huolang's ferocious aura immediately weakened. Lord Ling Xiao was the last one to arrive, wasn't he? Suddenly, a puzzled voice came from the crowd. It sounded a little strange. However, the moment this voice fell, everyone's eyes fell on Lin Shi. What a joke. Those who could come to the sunset sacred mountain to search for treasures were all heaven's favorites of the various sections. Their divine souls were not weak. Do you think that others can't tell that it's you just because you pinch your nose? Embarrassment flashed across Lin Shi's face. He did not expect Huolang to attack Ling Xiao. He simply could not stand him being praised. You are clearly the thief who stole the spirit fruit and caused us to be in such a predicament. Is it appropriate for you to pretend to be a hero? At this moment, Lin Shi seemed to have confirmed that the figure just now was Ling Xiao. Apart from this descendant of the Ling people, who else could hide under Elder Ling's nose? No wonder he looked familiar from the back just now. Ling Xiao pretended to look at Lin Shi in surprise. A trace of coldness flashed across the depths of his eyes. The spirit fire had yet to be born, and the flame barrier at the entrance of the secret territory would not dissipate for a while. Why not let this son of destiny move his muscles and bones first? Hearing Lin Shi's words, Nian Qingyun frowned. She felt a wave of disdain, especially after seeing Lin Shi's ugly behavior. Lord Ling Xiao stood up for you. How could you hide in the crowd and frame him? Despicable. Truly despicable. However, perhaps Ling Xiao really did steal the spirit fruit. After all, there was no one else present who dared to provoke a divine, overlord demonic beast other than Ling Xiao. Humph, this bastard. I was almost fooled by him. Oh, Brother Lin, I'm really hurt by your words. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and sighed softly. I wanted to help you. After all, you saved my wife's life. I didn't expect. Sigh. Senior, to be honest, the last one to arrive was actually him. Ling Xiao pointed at Lin Shi. Immediately, the crowd exclaimed, Yes, yes. He was the last one to arrive. That's him. He's purposely framing Lord Ling Xiao. F***CK. Lin Shi's face twisted when he heard that. Chapter 137. Ling Xiao, you're framing me. Although I was the last to arrive, how can you prove that I stole the fruit? I think you're deliberately targeting me. You want to use this senior to kill me. Hypocrite. Lin, she shouted angrily, his face full of righteousness and sorrow. This damn bastard. How dare he make false accusations? However, he didn't have the spiritual fruit of Tao with him. Why would he be afraid of being framed? A straight foot is not afraid of a crooked shadow. Lin, she did not panic at all. This guy seems to be the one who provoked Lord Ling Xiao at the engagement ceremony. Yes, I think his name is Lin Shi. Could it be? When everyone heard this, they looked a little puzzled. Lin, she didn't look like a person who could steal the fruit in front of a divine, overlord demonic beast. He didn't have the strength. However, Ling Xiao was different. Although his realm was similar to Lin Shi's, he was the successor of the ancient clan and the young master of the devil sect. He was destined to have trump cards that no one could imagine. Even Yan Qingyun's eyes flashed with a cold light. Sure enough, Ling Xiao was just acting. Haha, it's hard to be a good person these days. After all, there are many fence-sitters. Ling Xiao smiled sadly and looked deeply at Yan Qingyun. It's just that they don't believe me. I don't care. You have to believe me. Yan Qingyun was suddenly confused. What the hell is Ling Xiao doing? Is it really not him? How can we prove it? Isn't it simple? Let's take out our interspatial rings and let the seniors search them. Then we'll know. Ling Xiao smiled eerily, but Lin Shi's face turned pale. Damn it. He really didn't steal the spiritual fruit of Tao, and he really didn't dare to let anyone search his interspatial ring. Aside from Elder Ling's secret, the armored centipede was still inside. If Fire Wolf saw it, he wouldn't be able to clear his name. In a short moment, Lin Shi's head was covered in cold sweat. Hand over your interspatial ring. Fire Wolf felt that it made sense. He would never dare to search Ling Xiao's interspatial ring. What if he found something that should not be seen, such as a woman's undergarment or an inflatable? Ahem, wouldn't Ling people kill him to silence him? But that amp alone? Why did his face suddenly turn pale? Look, this idiot is sweating. He has a guilty conscience. F***CK, so is really this kid who stole it. Shameless. How dare you slander Lord Ling Xiao? He doesn't look like a good person to me. He has shifty eyes. You can't just search through the Qiankoan ring. Previously, there was a disciple in our sect who stole a pill from an elder and stuffed it into his, but, ugh, this is too disgusting. How am I supposed to eat it? These dogs can even eat shit. It's the same as washing it. But the spiritual fruit is so big. Many disciples couldn't help but look at Lin Shi with a hint of shock in their eyes. Ruthless. However, compared to the fact that he dared to provoke the Ling people on the day of Lord Ling Xiao's engagement, he was a ruthless person. Now that they thought about it, it made a lot more sense. He didn't even care about the 3 emperors and 10 kings of the Ling people. Why would he be afraid of a mere divine overlord? Meanwhile, Lin Shi's face had turned completely green after hearing the crowd's slander. He couldn't figure out why Ling Xiao was always able to put the blame on him, but he couldn't explain it. Resentment and anger finally turned into a roar filled with resentment. Ling Xiao, just you wait. Bah, shameless. Lin, she doesn't know how to repent. He brought this upon himself, but he wants to push the blame to Lord Ling Xiao. Shameless bastard. Whoosh. Lin, she disappeared from where he was standing. Fire Wolf's expression turned serious as the flames around him rose to the sky. It really was you. If it wasn't you, why did you run? Whoosh. The sound of wind breaking rang out as Fire Wolf chased after Lin Shi. Ling Xiao watched the 2 figures disappear into the horizon with a playful smile on his face. The child of destiny always had a difficult life. However, with Huolang's means, it was absolutely impossible for him to kill Lin Shi. After all, it was hard to say how lucky he was. Ling Xiao descended from the sky and landed in front of Fu Yunyao and the others. He didn't pay any attention to Yan Qingyun. Women can't be spoiled all the time. He was playing hard to get. If he needed to be dried, he had to be dried. Otherwise, he would grow fur easily. Moreover, the way she looked at him just now clearly showed that she didn't trust him. I'm not anyone's bootlicker, Of course I'm not going to compromise. Young master, Fu Yuniao and the others bowed, looking at Ling Xiao with eyes full of reverence. Young master, the spirit fruit, is it in your hands? However, based on Fu Yuniao's understanding of this young master, he was most likely the one who did it. He then took the opportunity to blame Lin Shi. Otherwise, Lin Shi wouldn't have run away so resentfully. Ling Xiao looked at Fu Yuniao with a half-smile and said softly, "Be confident and get rid of the mane." Fu Yuniao's pretty face showed a smile. Sure enough, this young master of his family was full of evil tricks. Although she didn't know why Lin Shi didn't want others to search his interspatial ring, it was most likely that her young master had something on him. However, in this case, he had to take the blame even if he didn't want to. In front of the ancient forest in the distance, Nian Xingyun looked coldly at Ling Xiao and Lin Shi who were talking and laughing. A trace of coldness flashed across her picturesque face. After hesitating for a while, she finally gathered her courage and walked toward Ling Xiao. Just now, I'm sorry. For the first time, the goddess of the Dao Palace took the initiative to lower her head to someone else. It was hard to imagine that a goddess like her, who cultivated the great path of ruthlessness, would apologize to someone else. What did it mean to apologize? It meant that she couldn't let it go. Fu Yuniao and the others widened their eyes instantly. Obviously, they didn't expect Nian Xingyun to apologize to Ling Xiao. Haha, the great path of ruthlessness. How ruthless? Oh, Ling Xiao just nodded calmly. He didn't have any intention to talk to Nian Xingyun. Seeing the indifference on the young man's face, a trace of humiliation flashed across Nian Xingyun's eyes. She had taken the initiative to apologize. What else do you want? For a moment, she felt a little wronged. In a trance, Nian Xingyun seemed to realize that after being with Ling Xiao for a few days, there were many emotions in her heart that she had never felt before. She began to look forward to it. She would be nervous and afraid of losing him. She also couldn't stand seeing another woman standing beside him. But why was it like this? The great path of ruthlessness, Taishang indifference. She had cultivated the Tao for 18 years. How could she be defeated by a face? The world can doubt me, but you can't. This sentence was like a demonic obsession that was deeply engraved in Nian Xingyun's heart. She vaguely felt that, yes, I can't. At this moment, Nian Xingyun's heart was in a mess. When she saw Ling Xiao's indifference, she realized that indifference could hurt people so much. Chapter 138. On the other side, Huolang had chased Lin Shi all the way to the edge of the Sunset God Mountain. If he took another step forward, he would be in the human territory. Furthermore, the Sunset City belonged to the Ling people. If he appeared, there would be experts from the Ling people who would kill him. Damn it! How could this Xianqing ant run so fast? What a joke! An ant is an ant, but I have an exalted realm remnant soul in my ring. How could a wild monster in the mountains imagine that he could just casually use a few tricks? Damned human! I don't believe that you won't leave the Sunset City. Huolang stood on top of an ancient tree and looked coldly at the figure that fell into the city. His face was full of malevolence. He waited bitterly for 5 years, and in the end, his efforts were in vain. He couldn't take this lying down. If the one who stole his spirit fruit was the successor of the Ling people, then so be it. However, a Xianqing ant with no background dared to touch his fortune. Damn it! Damn it! Senior, at this moment, a faint laughter came from the darkness. Who is it? Huolang's face froze, and he turned his head to see a figure covered in a black robe slowly walking over. His face was completely covered by the bamboo hat, only revealing his thin lips. Judging from his aura, he should be in the Paong realm. And who are you? Senior, I know who has the spirit fruit. The black-robed figure smiled faintly, and his voice was filled with inexplicable hatred. You know. Huolang's eyes narrowed, and a terrifying aura spread out from his body. And take off your bamboo hat. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Senior, I sincerely want to cooperate with you, but you have such an attitude. Isn't it a bit inappropriate?" Zhuge Liang smiled faintly and took off his bamboo hat, revealing a pale and sinister face. Ever since that day, when Qin Feng was crushed to death by Ling Xiao on the battle stage, he went down the mountain to hide. The identity of the primordial cauldron had been exposed, and since Ling Xiao dared to crush Qin Feng to death in front of the Great Elder, he probably wouldn't mind killing another sect master's true disciple. That guy's notoriety in the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent was not the slightest bit inferior to any famous old demon. Since they had shed all pretense of cordiality, Zhuge Liang naturally did not have too many misgivings. Ling people were terrifying, but as long as Ling Xiao died, he would be the best candidate for the position of young master. Ling people wouldn't dare to destroy the myriad Tao Devil sect in a fight between sect disciples. The two great sects were both supreme inheritances. Once they started fighting, it would definitely involve a lot of people. Ling Tianlin was not the only one who had the final say in the 9 branches of the Ling clan. Of course, the most important point is that the conflict between Zhuge Liang and Ling Xiao was already irreconcilable. In other words, if he did not kill Ling Xiao, he would definitely be killed by Ling Xiao. In that case, why don't I kill you first? You are. Huang looked at the young man in front of him and frowned slightly. He had been living in seclusion in the Sunset Mountain for the past few years, so he did not know much about the prodigies of the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent. But looking at the young man in black, he was obviously not old, but he was already in the Powang stage. It was obvious that he was a prodigy of a great sect, or even a young master of an ancient clan. "I am Zhuge Liang, sect master's true disciple of the myriad Tao Devil sect." Zhuge Liang smiled faintly and looked at Huang in front of him with a playful gaze. With his identity as the disciple of the myriad Tao Devil sect, not to mention a divine lord, even a divine king would have to be wary. That was the reason why he was so confident. Of course, Zhuge Liang admitted that he was gambling. Once Huang exposed his whereabouts, he was almost certain to die in the territory of the Ling people in the Sunset Mountain City. But with his strength, he did not have much of a chance of winning against Ling Xiao alone. Zhuge Liang was able to sit firmly in the position of sect master's true disciple because of his low profile and steady personality. The path to immortality was vast and full of dangers. Of course, it was safest to be a dog. If it was not for the fact that Ling Xiao was so overbearing, he would not have taken such a risk. "Oh, so you're the true disciple of the demonic sect." As expected, Huang's eyes flashed with a hint of fear when he heard Zhuge Liang's identity. Even his tone became gentler. The myriad Tao demonic sect, another supreme Taoist orthodoxy. Although he was a divine lord, which supreme Taoist orthodoxy did not have a few divine kings or divine emperors, they could crush him with a finger. Moreover, although he did not know this true disciple of the demonic sect, he had heard of the name Zhuge Liang. He was the most steady senior brother of the myriad Tao demonic sect. If Ling Xiao had not joined the sect, he would most likely be the young master of the sect. But why did he suddenly look for her? What was the matter? "Did you just say that you know who stole my spirit fruit?" Huang looked at Zhuge Liang cautiously. "Who stole it? Wasn't it that son of a B***TCH called Lin Shi? Do I need you to tell me that?" "That's right. The spirit fruit is not with Lin Shi." Zhuge Liang smiled faintly. He naturally knew that a miracle had appeared at the Sunset Divine Mountain. This was the territory of the Ling people. Ling Xiao would most likely come here. Now that Ling Xiao was out in the open and Zhuge Liang was in the dark, it was the best opportunity. Therefore, a few days ago, Zhuge Liang came to the Sunset Divine Mountain and lay low to see if he could find a chance. Originally, after Ling Xiao defeated the true disciple of the Cloudy Millet Immortal sect, he was disheartened and was thinking of escaping to the western border to avoid this demon. However, this morning, he hid in the forest and watched as Lin Shi chased after Ling Xiao. A glimmer of hope reignited in his heart. The heavens are helping me. When the divine Lord Huang arrived, Zhuge Liang immediately guessed what had happened. Although he was surprised that the usually ruthless young master of the Ling people did not take the opportunity to kill Lin Shi, it was most likely because he was worried about Nian Xinyan. After all, the news of Ling Zhao's engagement had spread throughout the eastern border. If he killed Lin Shi in front of Nian Xinyan, the former would definitely become hostile. If that was all there was to it, then his chance had come. A divine lord demonic beast was enough to easily kill a true disciple, even if he was a prodigy of the Tao laws. As long as he joined forces with it, the successor of the Ling people would not be able to escape. Of course, some people like to be wishful thinking. If it's not with Lin Shi, could it be with Lord Ling Xiao? Hualang instantly snorted, only to see that Zhuge Luyuan had a smile on his face and didn't refute. Gulp. Hualang felt a chill rising from the bottom of his heart. When he looked at the true disciple of the devil sect, his eyes were filled with fear. What the F***ck do you mean? Could it be, Senior, the spirit fruit is indeed with Ling Xiao? I saw him steal the spirit fruit and leave with my own eyes. Zhuge Luyuan smiled faintly. What did he see with his own eyes? He was just trying to make Hualang believe him. However, according to his understanding of Ling Xiao, he was definitely good at seizing someone's fortune. Senior, you should be more familiar with the fluctuations in the sunset god mountain than me. I guess the spirit fire of heaven and earth has appeared. If you can merge with it, wouldn't it be more useful than a spirit fruit? But this is the territory of the Ling people. If I take action, I'm afraid. Chapter 139. I understand Senior's concern. That's why I'm here. Zhuge Luyuan waved his hand, and an ancient bee-skin pouch appeared in his hand. Demon-trapping pouch. You? Hualang's expression changed. Demonic aura soared into the sky from his body. Demon-trapping pouch, as the name implied, was used by those who claimed to be righteous to trap demons. However, looking at Zhuge Luyuan's appearance, he didn't seem to want to be his enemy. Could it be that Senior, don't panic. Zhuge Luyuan smiled indifferently. Senior, you only need to hide in the demon-trapping pouch, and I can bring you to the historical remains that contains the spiritual fire. At that time, Senior will appear and kill Ling Xiao for me. Wouldn't the spiritual fire be in your hands? You want to kill Ling Xiao? Hualang's expression changed. Hundreds of thoughts ran through his mind, even though he didn't know what Zhuge Luyuan was planning. However, if the Ling clan were to know about what he had just said, it would be difficult for him to keep his life. That's right. Senior, you don't know. Ling Xiao and I are mortal enemies. Now that I'm stranded outside, it's all because of him. Therefore, Senior, you don't have to do it yourself. You only need to help me capture Ling Xiao. I'll take care of the rest. Zhuge Luyuan clenched his teeth. He said those words to dispel Hualang's worries. After all, it would take a lot of effort for him to do it himself. Ling people's might was not something that anyone in the eastern border would have the courage to challenge. Killing Ling Xiao was undoubtedly going against this colossus. Not to mention a mere deity, overlord, demonic beast. Even those demonic kings and demonic emperors in the northern border wouldn't have the courage to do so. This, Hualang, seemed to be hesitating. After all, once this matter was exposed, it wouldn't be as simple as losing his life. On the path to immortality, there were many ways that were even worse than death. Senior, you only have one chance. Do you plan to continue hiding in this barren mountain or obtain the spiritual fire and enter the king realm? It all depends on today. Zhuge Luyuan's voice was filled with temptation. How could he not see the fury of this demonic beast? Peak divine overlord, one step away from becoming an emperor. No one would be able to resist this temptation, especially for a demonic beast that was wandering alone in the wilderness. They didn't have many cultivation resources to begin with, so it wasn't easy for them to reach their current level. For a descendant of the ancient clan like Ling Xiao, a spiritual fruit was an ordinary fortune. However, for Fire Wolf, it was an opportunity to reach the king realm. With different statuses, the opportunities would naturally be different. The mountains and rivers in his eyes were as different as heaven and earth. An ant gazes at the sky and sees the white clouds. When the flood dragon soared into the sky, the sun, the moon, and the sea of stars could be seen. I'm only responsible for capturing Ling Xiao. You do the rest. After today, there's no need for us to meet again. In the end, the fire wolf took a deep breath as monstrous ferocity flashed in its eyes. What Zhuge Liang said was right. If he missed today, it would probably be difficult for him to have another chance to step into the king realm in his lifetime. Just now, he had chased after Lin Shi. This was something that all the prodigies from the various sects had witnessed with their own eyes. Even if Ling Xiao died in the Sunset Divine Mountain in the end, no one would suspect him of being the Ling people. As such, a mere descendant of the Ling people, no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves, if no one helped him, how could he be his match? Of course, the risk of this matter was naturally great. If he failed to kill Ling Xiao and allowed him to escape, he and Zhuge Liang would probably die without a burial ground. But at the same time, in this world, for ordinary people, if they wanted to stand out and achieve supreme fame, they would definitely not be able to do so through ordinary means. He had to take the unorthodox path. Haha, Senior, don't worry. I've already prepared many methods. That Ling Xiao won't be able to escape even if he has wings. Zhuge Liang laughed sinisterly. The spirit bag in his hand suddenly released a bright light, and the fire wolf's figure instantly disappeared from its original spot. Ling Xiao, this time, let's see where you can escape to. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't think of joining hands with Lin Shi. After all, with the latter's hatred for Ling Xiao, he probably didn't need to promise anything. That young man would definitely go all out. However, during the battle with the Ling people that day, Lin Shi's monstrous attack was crushed by Ling Xiao with one hand. His strength was still too weak. Eldest senior brother didn't have many advantages, but being steady was his style of doing things. At the same time, in the Sunset Ancient City, Lin Shi was hiding in a dilapidated courtyard in the corner of the city with a miserable expression. His eyes were gloomy. Once again, he had been tricked by Ling Xiao again. Ever since he met Elder Ling, although Lin Shi couldn't be said to have a smooth journey, he had always been the one tricking others. When had he ever been tricked by others? Furthermore, in this short period of time, from the Cloud Gathering Pavilion to the Sunset Mountain, he had actually been tricked by Ling Xiao twice. How is this possible? Furthermore, just as Elder Ling had said, with his sole perception of the venerable realm, how could he not sense Ling Xiao's existence? How did he hide himself and take the opportunity to steal the spirit fruit? Lin Shi's eyes became even gloomier. He suddenly thought of the only possibility. Elder Ling. Whether it was at the auction house or at the Sunset Mountain, Ling Xiao seemed to be able to easily see through his thoughts and play with him in the palm of his hand. How ridiculous was this? Was he a deity of the 9 heavens? Could he predict the future? If no one had tipped him off in advance, Lin Shi would never believe that everything was so coincidental. He didn't go to snatch the spirit fire, but appeared at the mountain stream on time. If no one had tipped him off, how did he find his way there? Thinking about it this way, it made sense that Ling Xiao had targeted him at the auction house. But why did Elder Ling do this? Could it be because of the talent Ling Xiao had displayed that day? A 17-year-old Dao prodigy with invincible immortal looks. If I follow him, I won't have to suffer in the future. Haha. At this moment, Lin Shi suddenly felt a little disappointed. Along the way, he and Elder Ling had gone through life and death. They had quarreled, but more than that, they were happy to grow together. To be honest, Lin Shi was grateful to Elder Ling. Although Elder Ling always liked to brag and talk about his past glory, but without him, Lin Shi might have died at the bottom of the cliff. Unexpectedly, no matter how deep their friendship was, it couldn't resist the temptations of this world. As long as there was enough bargaining chips, betrayal was a decision that could be made in an instant. At this moment, Elder Ling, who was in the ring, also had some doubts. That spirit law fruit was really stolen by Ling Xiao? Was it possible? Although it couldn't be said to be foolproof, ordinary thearchs definitely wouldn't be able to avoid it. Then, what was Ling Xiao's level? A disciple of an ancient family in the Xianxing or Pong stage at most had evaded the detection of a spirit and snatched the spiritual fruit of Tao from Lin Shi the moment he left. Was it ridiculous? Of course it was ridiculous. At the very least, Elder Ling didn't believe that Ling Xiao had the ability to completely conceal his aura. Just now, at the entrance of the ruins, Elder Ling had specially observed the latter. There was indeed a wave of energy on his body that could block other people's divine sense. But at most, he could only conceal his cultivation level. His aura and vitality couldn't escape the senses of a supremacy. Moreover, why didn't Ling Xiao go to the place where the spirit fire appeared? Why did he have to go to the depths of the sunset divine mountain? Although Huolang's method was clumsy, it wasn't something that ordinary Palong stage cultivators could see through. How did Ling Xiao know that there was a creation in the mountain stream? However, such a ridiculous thing had happened today. Shi'er, you have really disappointed me. Chapter 140. A Dao Law spirit fruit was indeed quite tempting to Lin Shi, who had yet to comprehend a Dao Law. However, which creation had he not given Lin Shi along the way that was not more terrifying than this spirit fruit? Haha, this dog has learned how to protect its food after being raised. The master and disciple, who had sworn to become immortals together, finally had a rift in their hearts because of Ling Xiao, this variable. Ahem, Elder Ling, has that fire wolf left? However, animosity was animosity, and the act was still going on. The two of them could not leave each other. Even if Elder Ling had other thoughts, he could not leave him for the time being. Women and friendship were all empty. The great Tao was heartless, so, of course, benefits were the most important. As long as Lin Shi could merge with the undying heart flame, his cultivation would enter the Palong realm. Comprehending a Dao Law was not difficult for him. At that time, he would have the qualifications to compete with Ling Xiao. As for Elder Ling, he had to be careful. If the old man wanted to stay awake, Lin Shi had to refine pills. Therefore, if he wanted him to fall asleep, Elder Ling should take his medicine. Let's go. Elder Ling's voice was obviously low. However, Lin Shi was not surprised by this. Instead, he pretended to heave a sigh of relief and said in a deep voice, "That Ling Xiao has harmed me. There is an 80% chance that the spirit fruit is with him. If Elder Ling does not believe me, I will definitely capture him and prove my innocence after I merge with the undying heart flame." Oh, Elder Ling still looked absent-minded. Since Lin Shi had coveted the creation, he had probably already prepared an excuse. Although Elder Ling also wanted to believe him, once there was a crack in this relationship, it would be difficult to repair it. Elder Ling, do you have any more pills that can change your appearance? Lin Shi's reputation in the Sunset Mountain was probably not even as good as Ling Xiao's. Once he appeared, not to mention whether the fire wolf was waiting at the entrance of the ruins. Even those prodigies of the ancient sects would definitely not let him go, right? Thinking of this, Lin Shi was so angry that the roots of his teeth itched. He often snatched other people's creation, but wasn't this normal on the immortal path? Whoever was stronger would seize the good fortune. If one did not have the strength to snatch the good fortune, they would also face the risk of being killed. This was the so-called opportunity, and risk coexisted in direct proportion. But now, with Ling Xiao's slander, he had become a despicable person that everyone despised. How can we, the children of destiny, who are upright, and stubborn, swallow this anger? How could he swallow it? How am I supposed to swallow it? F***CK. Lin Shi took a deep breath. No matter how aggrieved he felt, now was not the time to fall out with Ling Xiao. Wait a little longer, endure a little longer, and be steady. Oh yeah. Elder Ling's half-dead voice made Lin Shi even angrier. Elder Ling, I haven't been able to refine enough soul-nurturing pills due to the lack of spiritual materials these past few days. Why don't you sleep in the ring for a period of time? I'll wake you up after I snatch the undying heart flame. You good. Elder Ling's tone turned cold. In the end, he didn't say anything. He handed over a pill and fell into silence. I like to see how far a little brat like you can go without me. One day, you'll understand that everything you have was given to you by me. Then, you'll know how ridiculous your actions today were. What a sin. Perhaps Ling Xiao didn't expect that his unintentional snatching of Lin Shi's spiritual fruit would cause a rift to appear in the relationship between this master and disciple who had been through life and death for many years. It's all a coincidence. Coincidentally, I was moving on the day you were on your period. Coincidentally, I met the class bell while watching a movie. Coincidences are the most coincidental. You two are King experts at coincidences. Lin Shi swallowed the pill and changed his appearance again. But at this time, he was still worried. He walked to the street and found an ancient clan prodigy who hadn't gone to the sunset sacred mountain. He patted his shoulder lightly. Brother, what? Did you go to the Gathering Cloud Pavilion auction? Yes, I did. Why? Then do you know me? CKU. Who do you think you are? Why would I know you? Do you think you're Lord Ling Xiao? It couldn't be helped. Previously, Lin Shi had completely trusted Elder Ling, so he didn't know what he looked like after taking the pill. But now he had to be careful. If this old thing changed his appearance to the same one, then wouldn't he be courting death if he appeared in front of others? Just like that, Lin Shi walked on the streets of the Sunset City, asking everyone he met if they knew him. After being scolded a dozen times, he sneered and walked into the depths of the sunset sacred mountain. Don't say, why does this person look a little familiar? The last ancient clan prodigy frowned, then seemed to think of something. Wasn't this the idiot who had competed with Lord Ling Xiao for treasures at the Gathering Cloud Pavilion? But no one had expected him to swagger into the Sunset City, so they didn't react for a moment. This idiot actually dared to show himself. How could a cauldron of pills produce two different appearances? The sunset sacred mountain, where divine light shot into the sky. Ling Xiao had already closed his eyes and entered a state of cultivation. Fu Yinyao and the others stood on either side of him, quietly waiting. Actually, I didn't need to wait. No one dared to step within 5 kilometers of Ling Xiao. What a joke. Although this demonic sect's young master's actions just now could be described as chivalrous, ambitious, loyal, and loving. But at the same time, Ling Xiao's notoriety was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. Who would be willing to provoke this demon? At this moment, Nian Qingyun crossed her arms and leaned against an ancient tree. Her beautiful eyes stared coldly at the figure not far away. Although her Dao heart was in a mess today for some reason, ever since Ling Xiao did that to her last time, not only did her cultivation level not drop, but it even showed signs of breakthrough. But didn't Master say that once a cultivator of the heartless Dao lost her virginity, her cultivation level would dissipate? But why did her cultivation level dissipate so slowly? Could it be that Master was lying to her? But how could that be? Since young, Master had treated her like her own mother. Could it be that she didn't want her to be happy? Nian Xingyun's pretty face turned red at the thought of the trembling that came from her soul. A layer of ripples suddenly appeared in her heart. Puff, but just as she was frowning and pondering, a strange sound suddenly came from the young man in the distance. Fu Yunyao and the others heard the sound, and their faces froze slightly. Then, they discreetly moved away into the distance. Only Nian Qingyun's pretty face suddenly became sluggish. At this moment, she seemed to feel that Ling Xiao's aura suddenly became stronger for a moment. However, before she could sense it clearly, the fluctuation disappeared. Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. There seemed to be a smile at the corner of his mouth. He looked refreshed. Haha, young master is really not bothered by trifles. Fu Yinyao and the others covered their mouths and chuckled. But Nian Xingyun felt that it was ridiculous. This bastard, that strange sound just now, was actually a breakthrough. Chapter 141. Nian Xingyun's divine soul perception was incomparable to that of Fu Yunyao and the rest. Moreover, the sage's emotion-forgetting art that she cultivated had a secret technique that could detect auras. Although Ling Xiao had a numinous treasure to conceal his cultivation level, the power that he had felt at that moment could not be faked. That bastard had broken through. With a poof, he had broken through. What kind of ridiculous thing was that? In the 18 years that Nian Qingyun had been cultivating, she had never met such a monster who had broken through to the next cultivation level. However, since Ling Xiao had comprehended the law of Tao, his cultivation level should have already reached the Paong realm, right? Then his current breakthrough. Haha. Looking at the appearance of this seal, it should be disappearing soon. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the place where Shun Xiao soared into the sky. At that moment, he naturally did not know that Zhuge Liang was also at the Sunset Sacred Mountain. There were many powerful auras hidden in the forest. Obviously, they had all come for the heaven and earth spirit fire. However, compared to the heaven and earth spirit fire, Ling Xiao was more concerned about the creation on Lin Shi and the reward for killing him. The heaven and earth spirit fire was obviously prepared for the children of destiny who had cultivated the blazing scripture. Of course, with Ling Xiao's talent, if he merged the heaven and earth spirit fire into his body, he might be able to comprehend the law of Tao of fire. After all, such a spirit fire was the power closest to the origin of heaven and earth. As for Nian Qingyun, it was obvious that her Tao heart was in a mess. As long as he used a little more tricks, the goddess of the Tao Palace would probably understand the true meaning of the sage's emotion for getting art. Hey, isn't this Lord Ling Xiao? Suddenly, a chuckle came from afar. Then, a figure with a terrifying aura came from the sky and landed in front of Ling Xiao and the rest. The person who came was dressed in black and had a handsome face. His eyes were filled with a bright golden light. Behind him, there were several other youths dressed in the same black robes. However, when they saw Ling Xiao, they did not show any fear. Instead, there was a hint of hostility. It's young Master Qin Lung from the ancient Qin clan, the young Master Lung who cultivated the heartless sword. That's right, this is the heartless young Master Lung that everyone talks about. I heard that although Sir Lung is young, his status in the ancient Qin clan is second only to the young master of the Qin clan. Isn't that so? Young Master Lung's name is the memory of a generation. When I was 12 years old, I first heard the two words young Master Lung and had always respected him. Once the heartless sword is out, who can compete with young Master Lung? Then who is stronger between him and Lord Ling Xiao? It's hard to say, Poochie. Hearing the discussions around him, Ling Xiao almost laughed out loud. Heartless young Master Lung? When I first heard the name, I thought I had transmigrated back. This name that exuded the aura of nobility really brought back a lot of memories. 800 small fortunes, as expected of the era of great competition. It was just that these people with little luck were mostly used to farm experience for the true children of destiny. Lord Ling Xiao, it's an honor to meet you. When Qin Lung saw the mockery on Ling Xiao's face, he still had a gentle smile on his face. He was an elegant young master with the style of a great family. Then, he turned to look at Nian Qingyun who was standing at the side. Goddess Nian. Everyone in the Shengzhou knew the name of this goddess. The cultivators here did not dare to look at Nian Qingyun because they were afraid that they could not control their emotions. If they lost their composure in front of Ling Xiao, they would immediately lose their minds and have their heads smashed by Ling Xiao. However, at this moment, Qin Lung smiled at Nian Qingyun openly, which immediately attracted a lot of exclamations. As expected of the young master of the ancient Qin clan, his status was comparable to Ling Xiao's, so naturally, they did not have too many scruples. In the eastern border of the Shengzhou eastern border, the Ling people were not the only clan. The ancient Qin clan had also been passed down for thousands of years and was a supreme clan. Moreover, it was said that the ancient Qin clan was inextricably linked to the cloudy millet immortal sect and a few other supreme Taoist orthodoxies. Therefore, even when they came to the Ling people's territory, they did not tremble in fear like the other sections. Nian Qingyun was still as cold as ever. She was always emotionless in front of everyone. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. He walked to Nian Qingyun's side and said coldly, "Wife, did you forget what I told you? You should know that you are not only the goddess of the Tao Palace, but also my fiancé. Hearing the anger in Ling Zhao's voice, the entire sunset sacred mountain fell into a dead silence. How awesome! In the entire Xingzhou, only Lord Ling Xiao dared to speak to Nian Qingyun in such a tone. However, this young master had always been domineering and had never cared about the people of the Qin clan. Why would he reprimand Nian Qingyun because of her rudeness to Qinlong? It's fine. I am already very fortunate to be able to look up to the beauty of the goddess. How can I be greedy for other things? Qinlong's smile was a little shy. He was a young master of the Qin clan and Ling Zhao's enemy. However, that does not stop me from thinking about your woman, Nian Qingyun. She was the highest dream in the hearts of all the ancient race prodigies in the Xingzhou. Remember, if you meet such a dog in the future, just, push him away. Ling Xiao spat hard, almost spitting on Qinlong's face. The grievance on Nian Qingyun's face instantly froze and turned into a smile. She did not like the way these young masters fawned over her in the first place. Therefore, she did not even want to bother with them when she saw them. However, she did not expect Ling Xiao to be so direct. That big mouthful of spit. He must have been coughing seriously. Does that mean that he still cares about me? Even if I don't trust him and even suspect his intentions, he still cares about me. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Instantly, the entire Sunset Mountain was filled with the sound of people sucking in cold air. Everyone looked at the cold and arrogant goddess of the Tao Palace with a faint smile on her face. They felt their breaths quicken and their chests tighten. Their vision turned black and the world spun around them. There were even a few sect disciples with weaker willpower who fainted when they saw that beautiful smile. The remaining disciples began to slap themselves in the face and bite their tongues, trying their best to stay awake. This way, they could admire the goddess smile for a while longer. Good fortune, heavenly fortune. The world only saw the goddess angry. When had they ever seen her smile? Today, they were lucky enough to see the goddess smile at the peak of the Sunset Mountain. A miracle. It was worth it. It was worth it even if they died. It was even to the extent that at this moment, even Qinlong was staring blankly at the beautiful, picturesque face before his eyes, and his heart had long since started trembling. This feeling was like a stone falling into a clear lake, creating 1,000 ripples. Oh, Goddess Nian, since the day I met you, my heart felt like it had fallen into a deep lake. I could not extricate myself, and had nowhere to put it. I like you. It was like the wind had flown for 130,000 miles without asking when it would return. Nian Xingyun's sudden snort was like a wisp of frost that slid into everyone's eyes. Everyone's expression turned cold. When they looked at the young master of the Qin clan again, his face was already flushed red. He lost his composure. Damn Ling Xiao, what makes you worthy of the goddess? At this moment, even if Qinlong was unwilling to admit it, he knew that Nian Xingyun's smile was for Ling Xiao alone. At this moment, Qinlong's eyes were filled with killing intent. As expected, the hatred of villains is all pulled up by women. Ling Xiao sighed and looked at Nian Xingyun deeply. His expression had turned completely cold. Heartless young Master Lung? Damn, I'm King Heartless Young Master Hera. Chapter 142. Lord Ling Xiao, I didn't expect the Ling people to have declined to such an extent. A mere ruin on a barren mountain is worthy of a disciple like you taking action personally. Qinlong's expression calmed down again, but there was a hint of resentment in his tone. Oh, young Master Lung, do you mean a small fry like you should be sent to a ruin on a barren mountain like this? Ling Xiao nodded thoughtfully. Thank you for your advice. You, Qinlong snorted. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the divine light in the distance suddenly fluctuate violently. In a short moment, it turned into a divine rainbow and fell from the sky. At the same time, a familiar aura was flying toward them. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. He's here. He could kill Qinlong with a wave of his hand. However, When he saw the group of cloudy immortal sect disciples in the crowd, a hint of playfulness flashed across Ling Xiao's eyes. To Ling Xiao, it made no difference whether he killed these good-for-nothings without any providence. However, I heard that the two orthodoxies have a good relationship. Haha, isn't it still up to you whether the eastern border is in chaos or not? Buzz. A terrifying buzzing sound reverberated. At the place where the divine light landed, a spatial crack suddenly appeared. There was a faint wave of heat that made one's heart palpitate. It was like the giant mouth of an ancient fire demon that wanted to devour all living beings that stepped into it. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of wind breaking suddenly came from a forest in the distance. Then, Lin Shi's figure fell from the sky with a calm expression. The crowd that was about to rush towards the entrance suddenly stopped in their tracks and turned to look at him. Huh? Lin Shi was stunned for a moment. He reached out to touch his face. Do I have a leak on my face? No, I think you look like a leak to me. Isn't that the idiot who fought with Lord Ling Xiao for treasures at the auction house? It seems to be him. This kid. Is there something wrong with his brain? Does he think that we can't see him just because he pretends not to see us? He doesn't look very smart. Gulp. Lin Shi swallowed hard and turned his head, only to see Ling Xiao looking at him with a faint smile. F***CK. Didn't those dogs say that they didn't recognize me? So, at this moment, Lin Shi did not hesitate at all. He directly turned into an afterimage and rushed into the entrance of the ruins. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao did not move. Therefore, the remaining paragons did not dare to move either. What a joke. Whether this trip would go smoothly or not would all depend on this little treasure-seeking beast. If I kill it now, how am I, a villain, supposed to subdue that heaven and earth spirit fire? Chase. After a while, everyone saw that Ling Xiao still hadn't moved, so they chased after Lin Shi. If he was not mistaken, this guy had a spirit cultivation method. Soul cultivation method. To put it bluntly, in the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent, there were no more than 10 experts who cultivated their spirit. However, every single one of them was an overlord in this area. As long as they could get their hands on that soul technique, everyone would have a chance to become the next magnate. So. The sound of wind breaking could be heard. In just a short moment, only Ling Xiao and a few others were left on the peak of the Sunset Mountain. Qin Lung greeted Su Yuwei from the Cloud Millet Immortal Sect from afar. Without any hesitation, he led the Qin clan into the ruins. With Nian Xingyun here, it will be difficult for him to have a fair fight with Ling Xiao. However, after entering the ruins, if there was a chance, he did not mind leaving Su Yuwei in the Sunset Divine Mountain forever. Others might be afraid of Ling people, but the Qin clan was not afraid at all. If he could kill Ling Xiao, his status in the clan would definitely rise. He might even be able to get his hands on the position of successor. Let's go too. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He turned to look at Nian Xingyun and walked towards the entrance. However, just when everyone thought he was going to enter the relic, Ling Xiao suddenly walked over to the unconscious geniuses from the various sects and took out their Qinquan bags and threw them into his own Qinquan ring. Fu Yunyao and the others were stunned. However, Ling Xiao turned around and said seriously, being thrifty is the rule of the myriad Tao Devil sect. You must remember it well. Damn, only when everyone's figures had completely disappeared did a figure slowly walk out from the ancient forest. He looked at Ling Xiao and the others, who were the last to disappear. His face suddenly turned cold. Ling Xiao, it's time for you to die. Boom! A terrifyingly hot gust of wind instantly filled the air. Ling Xiao stood alone in front of the Devil Sect's disciples. He was surrounded by starlight and blocked the terrifying waves. As far as the eye could see, this ruin was actually a dilapidated ancient hall. The hall was pitch black, as if it had been burned by flames. There was a faintly discernible strange aura that quietly seeped into the depths of one's heart. The power of this spiritual fire is somewhat terrifying. Even though he was very far away, Ling Xiao could feel a faint pressure at this moment. With the level of his divine soul and the strength of his physical body, he still felt such pressure. One could imagine the situation of the remaining devil sex disciples at this moment. Be careful. Ling Xiao took out a few fire-resistant pills from his chinquan bag and threw them to Fu Yunyao and the others. On the side, Nian Qingyun let out a soft snort. She moved lightly and turned into a spiritual wind, sweeping into the depths of the ancient hall. With the temperament of this successor of the Ling people, even if he found the fortune, it would not be her turn. Thus, it was better to separate here and save herself some embarrassment. Ha! A man who was not even willing to give her an engagement gift, and she expected him to share the fortune here? Forget it, men are all pigs. Senior Sister Fu, you guys walk around the edge of this ancient hall. You'd better not go to the hall in the deepest part. Ling Xiao did not stop Nian Qingyun. After all, when he faced Lin Shi later, the scene would be very bloody. Although the relationship between the two of them had been completely severed, but the old man in Lin Shi's body was probably not a simple person. According to the model of the Flame Emperor, it was very likely that he was a mighty venerable realm cultivator. There were no longer any venerable realm cultivators in the four borders of the Shengzhou continent. Only the center of the Shengzhou continent, where the sacred sect was located, might have a mighty cultivator of this level. Even if his physical body was broken and his cultivation was gone, this old thing who had lived for thousands of years had any means that were enough to be fatal. Ling Xiao was very strong, but it was only limited to the younger generation. He still had to be careful when facing such an ancient expert. After all, he was not the chosen one and did not have any luck. However, if Ling Xiao knew that the old man's remnant soul had fallen into a deep sleep because of Lin Shi, Ling Xiao would probably laugh his head off. What a sin. He had only picked a fruit on the way, but he did not expect that it would cause hostility between the loving master and disciple. Chapter 143. Today, Ling Xiao was at the peak of Sunset Mountain, and the system notifications never stopped ringing in his ears. He only had a few hundred providence points left. If he had worked a little harder, this ancient ruins hall would have been his burial ground. Sigh, you could have stepped on anyone, but you had to step on me. However, according to Ling Xiao's thinking, as a villain, he was destined to be surrounded by waves of children of destiny. After all, this was the setting. In which storyline did the children of destiny not step on the villains, but on a passerby? Hey, you walking, come over here and let me step on you. F*CKU. I'm just a minor character who lived for less than 5 seconds in the book. Do you have any pleasure in stepping on me? Therefore, there was no need to think about why the children of destiny had conflicts with Ling Xiao. What a joke. I'm the biggest villain in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. It was even possible that in this vast universe, there was a child of destiny who was using the system to search for the children of villains and crush them to steal their providence. After all, this world was vast and boundless. Above the world, there was a galaxy. If Ling Xiao could transmigrate, others might be able to as well. Achoo! Fu Yunyao and the others had already followed Ling Xiao's instructions and were heading in the opposite direction. There was indeed a heavenly providence in this hall, but it had nothing to do with these ordinary disciples. In this small ruin alone, there's already a son of destiny and a daughter of destiny. There was only one heavenly providence. Who would get in the end? Of course, it would be in the hands of the villain, Ling Xiao. Use your brain, okay? I'm the main character. Main character. Main character. Buzz. There was a strange sound coming from the hall in the distance. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, and he disappeared on the spot. Isn't the cloudy, immortal sect too overbearing? This spirit tree has 7 fruits. Why do I want to take them all? That's right. We have more people. If we really fight, we might not lose. We were the ones who saw the spirit tree first. Why do you think you can take it just because you want it? Isn't this too overbearing? Are the supreme Taoism orthodoxies so tyrannical? A group of geniuses from various sects stood in a side hall, glaring angrily at several white-robed immortal sect disciples. At this moment, in the center of the side hall, there was an ancient tree burning with flames, emitting a dazzling radiance. The 7 spirit melons on it emitted a delicate fragrance, and the power of flames faintly spread out. Ha ha! Everyone is right. The supreme Taoism orthodoxy is so domineering. You have the strength, so you can do whatever you want. If you have the ability, come and hit me. Mal Yang stood in front of the crowd with a spirit pen in his hand. The remaining immortal sect disciples also looked at the crowd with ridicule in their eyes. Su Yue, on the other hand, had a gloomy look on his face as he stood before the ancient tree with cold eyes. His delusion breaker aura was surging. Ever since he was humiliated by Ling Xiao on the street that day, he had become gloomy. As he looked at the clamoring disciples of the ancient sects, the murderous intent in his heart was on the verge of uncontrollable. Ling Xiao was someone they could not afford to offend. But you bunch of rotten fish and shrimps, how dare you talk nonsense in front of me? However, just as Mal Yang finished speaking, a white-robed figure suddenly descended from the sky and ruthlessly kicked him, sending him flying. Mal Yang, who was at the peak of the profound, clear stage, was unable to resist this kick at all. No, even Su Yue could only see an afterimage flashing past. Then, Mal Yang's figure disappeared into thin air. Boom! A miserable scream came from afar, and everything returned to normal. In all my life, this is the first time I've heard such a strange request. Hit me? Why don't you guys satisfy him? Ling Xiao frowned as he looked at the disciples in front of him and asked in a puzzled tone. When the disciples heard this, a trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. Young master, it's not that we don't want to satisfy him, but we're not strong enough. However, this kick was indeed a little cool. Oh, just now, you said that whoever is strong will get the opportunity. I think that makes sense. Senior brother Su, do you have any objections if I take these spirit fruits? Ling Xiao smiled faintly as the lightning intent around him suddenly surged out. It was like a divine punishment descending upon the world, intimidating everyone. At this moment, the entire side hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at the gloomy Su Yue with a hint of mockery in their eyes. Keep pretending. Why aren't you pretending anymore? Ha! Young Master Ling Xiao, what are you saying? The fortune in this world is naturally obtained by those who are capable. Su Yue swallowed hard. Even if Ling Xiao did not use the power of Tao, he would not have the courage to resist at all. Previously, in Sunset City, his Tao heart had been shattered by this successor of the Ling people. Looking at him now, he only felt his heart palpitating and he wanted to die. What about you guys? Do you have any objections? Ling Xiao reached out and snapped his fingers. Suddenly, a lightning sun appeared in the sky above his head. The violent power contained in it seemed to be able to shatter the sky. Young Master is unparalleled. If anyone dared to say no, they would be instantly smashed into nothingness by the lightning sun. In the blink of an eye, everything would be reduced to ashes. But I can do it with a snap of my fingers. What is forceful? Looks like no one has any objections. Then, I will reluctantly accept it. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. He reached out and plucked the fruits on the spirit tree one by one. When he plucked the third one, he threw it directly into his mouth. Slap, slap, slap. In the dead silence, the sound of Ling Xiao's slapping was very obvious. Everyone looked at the calm successor of the Ling people. Although they were filled with hatred, they did not dare to move. You don't say, it's really quite sweet. Try it. Ling Xiao casually plucked a spirit fruit and threw it to the crowd. Then, he turned to look at Su Yue. Su Yue's body tensed up instantly. The aura around him showed signs of dissipating. Senior brother Su, goodbye. What a joke. Ling Xiao naturally did not care about the spirit fruits and spirit melons. What he cared about was the villain points that these extras contributed. If he killed all of them at once, it would be easy for Ling Xiao. But where could he get the villain points? Snatch the air? Only where there are people would there be people's hearts. The human heart was a mysterious thing. It could bend and stretch, Be hard and soft, be righteous at times and dark at other times. And these are the roots of Ling Zhao's strength. Gulp. This spirit melon is mine. It's mine. An angry shout came from behind him. Then, the sound of spirit energy colliding rang out. Sigh. People's hearts are all greedy. A beautiful voice quietly sounded in Ling Zhao's mind. Beep. The host's behavior matches the villain style. Villain points increased by 2,000 points. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.